Good evening. This meeting will come to order. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals, June 2018 meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
I'll let you know in a second. Mr. Vicino has advised that he will not be attending tonight. Mr. Dubois?
Here.
Ms. Sprante? Here. Mr. Hirsch?
Here.
Mr. Soda?
Here.
Mr. Tizzola?
Here.
Ms. Valkett? Here.
Okay. Also present this evening, Meg Green, our recording secretary, Stephen Harris, our zoning officer. Okay, yes. Also, David Sulkus is here this evening, our city planner. If anyone feels that there's a member on this board that might be a conflict of interest to their hearing, please let us know. Let's see, Mr. Vicino is not here this evening, so Mr. Hirsch, will you fill in for Mr. Vicino?
I guess I will.
Okay, thank you. Item number 1A Seaview Avenue, will not be heard this evening. It's extended, so we're going to continue on with our agenda with item number 2, please.
Item number 2, 273 Cherry Street, MBP 777/813/24 R10 P&D Hunter et al. Applicants Milford Cemetery Association owner appeal the decision of the city planner dated 16 April 2018.
Hi, my name is Doug Adiosi. I'm at 63 Spruce Street. I was part of the file for the appeals.
Sir, I'm sorry. Could you please repeat that?
Doug Adiosi, 63 Spruce Street.
Maybe you can lift that microphone up just a little bit better.
May I bring stuff up?
You can, yes.
We're appealing Mr. Salkis's approval, zoning permit Z15396. It includes a garage bin. From meeting dated February 12, 2015, if you turn to the decision, 3 pages in. At the meeting held on Tuesday, February 3rd, 2014, the Planning and Zoning voted to approve the petition for a minor amendment to the special permit and site plan review to relocate the equipment storage building in organic recycling on map 67677778. Revised date for, the approval date for the site plan was May 3rd, 2001. If you look at, I think it's site plan number 2. I think that's the one they approved. It's the big site plan I handed up there.
Is it in the folder? Where is it? Because you gave us this stuff too.
One of those, yeah. It's number 2. I only have, I'm sorry, there's 7 different copies. They're $10 a piece, so I made one of each there. Site plan number 2 has a revised date of September of 2015. That is number 3. This is from, back to the book here, is the Milford Inland Water Courts Agency has received plans entitled Kings Highway Cemetery. This is also in the decision part. Where is it here? Improvement, soil erosion, sediment control, wetlands, deletion by Robert Hayes dated sheet 1901. You are proposing a minor disturbance of upland review of 100 feet of wetlands and inland watershed. Second page. If the work is not completed on or before August 28, 2020, or requested for an extension of time is not received in writing in 65 days, August 2020, the permit will expire. My question here is, the site plan should have had expired after 10 years. I don't know how it was approved. Planning and zoning regulation 7.1.3.12, statutory completion schedule. In the case of any site plan approved on or before October 1st, 1984, except as provided in paragraph 2 of this subsection, all work in connection with such site plan shall be completed within 5 years after the approval of the plan. The certificate of the approval of such site plan shall state the date on which such shall result in automatic expiration of approval of such site plan, except for in case site plan approval on or after October 1st, 1989. The Planning and Zoning Board, Zoning Enforcement Officer approving such site plan may grant one or more extensions of such 5-year period, provided the total extension of the extension shall not exceed 10 years, that's 10 years from the date such plan is approved. This was again approved in 2001, and these special permits were approved to it in 2015. It's 14 years. That's 4 years after the plan should have expired. Ray Oliver, amendment such site plan to move garage and dumpster. In October of 2016, the zoning enforcement officer visited the site after we complained. The stone retaining wall has been constructed approximately 25 to 30 feet farther west than shown on the plan. If you look at site plans 1 through 4, there is no indication of a retaining wall at all, or elevation changes.
You're going to have to show us where,
Okay, may I come on?
what you're talking about, because we have...
Site 4 have no indication of a retaining wall, which is shown in plans 5 and 6 as well.
So, where's 1 through 4?
They're over there. I made,
Oh, okay.
I made-
Oh, I
I'm
thought
sorry.
everybody had the
No,
same
I'm
copy.
sorry.
Okay.
They were 10 bucks each.
Oh, okay. I thought everybody had
No,
the same.
no, I'm sorry.
Okay.
There's no indication
Which one you
of a
have?
site, of
You
a
have two.
retaining
Yeah,
wall
I have 2. You have 2.
or elevation changes.
Which number you have, Joe?
1. I have 1.
Okay. No, you have 2.
No,
That's
he's got 1.
two.
That's 1. It's in red. 2 is over there. You have 2.
Oh, this is the number or this?
No, this is it.
This is the number, sorry.
That's it. My numbers. Those are all.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the 1 through 4, there is no elevation or retaining wall mentioned on any of the special permit approval.
Okay, so this one has it.
Yeah,
I see.
that one has it, and we'll get to that. So I'm not
Okay.
quite sure how
Okay.
the planning and zoning enforcement officer recognized that that retaining wall is 25 to 30 feet to the west too much, when it's not even on the site plan.
Okay, why don't you go back to my comments?
So my question is, how could it be approved by Mr. Salkis when it's not even on the site plan?
Okay, so, you know what, maybe we could take a few steps back then. Tell us again, give us some history about
All right, let me go
about
back
the
to this.
wall and what had happened, because
All right.
we all have different things here, so it's,
Okay.
you got a lot of information you put in front of us,
Yes,
but it's hard to
there's a
follow.
lot here. I'm trying to get through it quickly here.
I know you have in your mind what
Yeah.
everything is here, but we
In-
don't.
In 2015 of the spring, the Cemetery Association approached us about putting easement through our yard, mechanical for electrical in a new storage shed. We approved it, we came to negotiation, we did it. At the time, they said it was gonna be a storage shed with a swale on embankment with arborvitae's behind the swale. Over the course of the weekend of Columbus Day in 2016, a wall was erected. It was 100 by, it was probably 120 by 10 by 30. None of it was on a site plan.
Can I ask you, was it a retaining wall or a storage wall?
Well-
What is it?
At the time, it's a retaining wall. It depends who you ask within the city. Okay, it was a structure, it's a retaining wall. I have documentation in here where the city calls it a retaining wall. But as you see from the field report from the planning and zoning officer in the decisions, he mentions a stone retaining wall. And nowhere on the site plan does it mention a retaining wall or elevation change. Not until after the as-built plan came in on, I think it was March of 2017, the first as-built plan, does a retaining wall even show up.
Is there any pictures in this book that you had given us?
There are pictures of the retaining wall? Yes. If you look in, again, I didn't have a whole bunch, but if you look at number 11 in your packet of pictures, the packet, these pictures, the color ones. Number 11. That is a retaining wall with a recycle bin sitting on top of it. There was no permit for the retaining wall. There was no engineering drawings for that retaining wall. I have, hold on, let me get to my page here. This is an email from Mr. Joe Griffith to the Milford Cemetery Association dated February 8th, 2017. It's in the decisions. A subsurface drain pipe has been installed along the south property line. It is unclear what this pipe serves or where it discharges. A subsurface drain storm pipe installed, presumably serving the building rainwater leaders and discharging at the swale along the south property line. This is a concern as the pipe would appear to be across a sanitary disposal system leach field. There appears to be significant changes in grade on the south property line caused by construction of a retaining wall not indicated on the plan. That is from Mr. Griffith to the cemetery on February 8, 2017. Again, how could we have approval when it's not even on the plan? The response from the cemetery for those three items. A 12-foot perforated HDP subsurface drain pipe was installed by the site contractor to replace an open swale at the foot of the concrete retaining wall, 10 feet off the rear of the Gaudiosi's lot. The swale functioned to drain 3 acres of rainfall runoff from the cemetery. Discharge was and is wetlands at the southern corner of the cemetery. The outlet is provided with a rip-wrap apron to control erosion, divert flow to the wetlands. The inlet adequately bermed to prevent overdropping the 12-inch pipe. The roof leader discharging to shows above 12-inch HDP pipe is separated by code compliance distance of 25 feet and does not cross any part of the septic system. We'll get back to in a minute. A 6-foot retaining wall was required to regrade the site. Again, not in any site plans. Regrading provided for the material bins and the work area of the yard to drain easterly away from the properties on Spruce Street. The stability of the block wall is based on impeccable data and have been successfully for years. The dry stack wall system depends on gravity of function and it can be as high as 12 feet. If you look at picture 11, those blocks are 18 inches. That's a 9.5-foot retaining wall. By code in the city, anything outside of residential can only be, anything within a residential zone neighborhood can only be 6 feet. And this is zoned R10.
Can I interrupt you a minute? Whose fence is that right behind the
That's
wall?
my fence. As part of the easement, the Cemetery Association put a fence up on my property. So that fence is 10 feet off the retaining wall.
How high is that fence?
That fence is 6 feet. Now, the blueprints have been manipulated to satisfy the retaining wall of showing only 6 feet. If you look at print 1 in here, in print 11, I'd be curious to see how my fence is up to the 3rd block, which is 3.5 feet. And if you look at print 1, you see a dotted line behind the retaining wall that says previous grade. My fence.
Can I hold you up for 1 minute? Are you ready? Are you able to follow all of this so far by looking at the pictures? Are you able to follow what this gentleman is presenting to you? Yeah. Okay. All right, go ahead, because we're skipping
Okay.
around all these pictures. I just
I'm
want
sorry.
to make sure they're retaining what you're saying.
Okay, do I need to point out, you guys clear? You want me to come up and point it out, or?
Yeah, go ahead, ask me a question.
Just go back on the pictures you said about the picture, I think you said number 1 and 11,
1 and 11.
and
If you look at picture 1, that is a print from the as-built plan. The surveyor, along with the architect, is saying that my fence, the white fence in picture 1, is even to the 3rd block in picture 11.
well, listen, if you look at 1 and 11, they're showing 4 blocks above the finished grade. The picture shows 6 blocks.
This is what they're saying that's there.
You've got 2 blocks extra on here from what's on the plans.
1 block is buried. 1 block, may I
Yeah, but
approach?
if you look at picture 1, you have 4 blocks above grade, and the picture shows 6.
There's 7 blocks altogether.
No, I'm just saying, here's grade, right?
Right.
You have
Well,
1,
they're
2,
saying-
3, 4, and here's grade, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 2 blocks too many on this wall.
There's 7 blocks altogether. 1's buried.
I'm not going by what's buried, but here's the grade line. They're showing 4 above grade. You have 6 above grade here.
They're saying the grade is here.
Yeah,
Right,
but
I got what you said.
This is the grade line. See that dotted line? That's the grade line. It says proposed grade, previous.
Previous grade. So
Yeah.
that's what they're saying the grade is.
Right. There's 2 blocks too high on that wall according to the plan.
Exactly.
4 blocks above grade, they have 6. Right, I understand. Okay, I got you now.
Okay, so what you should do is just continue on with your presentation, and then we'll ask you questions
Okay.
later.
All right, so on February 13th, from the wetlands, this also goes along with the grading not shown on the site plan. Additional grading not shown on approved plan. This is from inland wetlands to Mr. Oliver, the architect for the cemetery. We have tried to meet with the city officials. We have met with Mayor Blake, Mr. Fournier, and Mr. Griffith back in November of 2016. Discussed it with them. They pointed out the elevation was not on the site plan. What was explained to me was that the dotted lines is the current elevation, and if it was a solid line, it'd be a proposed contour elevation change. That was not on the site plan. And again, both wetlands and Mr. Griffith mentioned that in emails to me and also to the cemetery. There's been numerous planning and zoning ignorance on here on what they accepted and what approved. The effective site plan review has been approved, shall deem to be conforming use of a zoning district. That's 7.1.3.11. This isn't a residential neighborhood. This is turned into a construction zone back there. There's construction equipment running every day. If you scan through some of the pictures, you can see the elevation change in 4. That is when they started to bring dirt in. We got flooded. We never got flooded in the 13 years I've been there until they raised the elevation in the background. Picture 8 shows the easterly part of the property where the elevation was flat. And you can see mounds of dirt being in there, raised elevation. And that will play in the part in the site plans in a minute. Now, picture 9 was what the yard looked like when they took our original fence down. As you can see, that is nowhere near to the elevation on picture 1. Picture 12 is the side, the easterly side of the wall. Again, it's flat. There's no elevation in here at all. If you look at the site plans themselves, especially if you concentrate on 4 and 5, the site plan number on there, if you find on the right-hand side or eastern side of the site plan where the woods begin, I think you guys have the ones over there, right? 4 and 5 site plan. If you look where, on the right-hand side, where the woods begin, you'll find elevation marker 20. Beginning of woods or end of woods, it says. Elevation marker 20. It goes 22, 24, 26, then 28. From my understanding, the dotted lines are the contours, which farther apart is a more gradual grade. Am I correct? Now, if you go back to 1 through 4, the site plan's numbered 1 through 4, look how far 22, 24, and 26 are different. They're 85 feet to the west, meaning they manipulated the grading to show that wall only being 6 feet tall. You're probably gonna have to swap some around there so you can see it. Can you see the difference in the elevation? You guys got different ones or you got 5 and 6?
We all have different ones. So
Yeah, no, but you're gonna have to, again, I don't have one of every copy there. You're gonna have to swap 1 through 4 with 5 and 6. Whoever's got 5 and 6.
Okay, so the gist of what you're saying is, you're saying that they've changed the ground structure dramatically all
Yes,
around it.
absolutely.
To make this retaining wall look like it's 6 foot high.
Absolutely. And you can see from pictures 1 and 11 that, it's nowhere near what's on there. What I find really interesting is pictures 19 and 20. I think you guys would be interested in those. I don't know who in the city could get the department work trucks to dump compressed stone in their backyard. Again, we sat down with the city. We sat down with Mayor Blake, Mr. Griffith, Mr. Fournier back in November. We also sat down with Mr. Griffith back in March of 2017. He asked us, how can we make this go away? After everything here is, you can see the violations that they did. He mentioned the retaining wall not in the permit. Ms. Palumbo mentioned the grading not in the permit. Mr. Griffin wanted to know how it could go away. We sat down, he took a piece of tracing paper out. We drew a fence. We pushed the recycle bins back 20 feet. Put a white fence in the recycle bins, put some trees in front of it. He said he would present it to the cemetery. Don't know if he did. What I struck strange was, he said the cemetery is not changing anything. So I don't understand how he could point out the violations here and not force him to do anything.
Who said the cemetery?
Mr. Griffith, Joe Griffith.
Okay.
We sat in his office for 2 hours after hours on March of 2017. Again, there's city trucks dumping compressed material back there. I don't understand. I don't understand how the planner could approve something that's obviously not in any of the site plans. You could just thumb through the pictures. I mean, just look at the grades and the different gradings in all the pictures. It's all new dirt. That elevation's probably changed 6 foot behind my fence. And I have proof, where is it? From the surveyor when we did our easement. This is from Mr. Heise to attorneys prior to our easement going through. The shed, as it exists, is not compliance with the existing Milford zoning regulations. 4-foot setback required rear property line. In fact, the shed projects over the rear of the property line into the cemetery property by 1 foot, and additionally, the existing Gaudiosi's Jackson stockade fence extends into the cemetery by 10 feet on the easterly side. That is exactly where that retaining wall sits today, 10 feet off that white fence. My backyard was flat. So there is now a 6-foot elevation change along the back of where my fence used to be. Again, no elevation change in the blueprint. You could also see in picture 22, that's how much the wall has moved over the last year and a half. That stake was straight up in the air. We have brought that attention to the city, and they have continuously ignored it, saying there is not a problem with it. And picture 21 gives you an example of how much it has moved on the top. The wall is just moving. There's no drainage. There's no engineering drawing of the wall. There's 6 foot of dirt behind that wall. They're constantly putting trucks on it. The noise is ridiculous.
All set?
Yeah, any questions?
Okay. All right, so part of your last comment, why do you think they're working there every single day? It's a cemetery. I can't imagine on a daily basis that they're out there digging things up with heavy equipment.
Very good question. We were informed that they were going to compost, and Ms. Hunter will go to that later. I don't know. We don't know what a cemetery does every day. From what I understand, you dig a hole, you put the dirt back in. Not all the dirt, but it goes back in. There is probably 500 yards of dirt, 400 yards of dirt in a pile, which we have it on the bottom, this one right here. The city truck was dumping the compost stone, looked like they must have diamond cut a road somewhere, and brought the excess material back there to put it on the driveway. I caught them in there 4 times before I called the city, and I just happened to be working from home that day. So, and the driveway was half done by then. So I don't know how many loads went in there. And again, we could.
Oh, there was the road millings.
Road millings.
Yeah. Well, I think they look for places to dump them, so if people want them, I think they give them to them.
If you go back there, because we have more questions for you. You mentioned a few things, so what is your biggest concern? This is a retaining wall, drainage pipes? Where does the drainage go to? Is it affecting the houses?
The drainage goes directly to the wetlands. There should have been a swale there.
Where is the wetlands from that wall?
It's about...
The wetlands are more on the other side, aren't they, to the middle?
The wetlands are to the eastern side, about 85 feet from the edge of the wall. So the drain pipe runs downhill into the wetland.
So it's going to the east side. If
side
you
of
were in
property.
front of the cemetery and Spruce Street was on the right,
I'm
the
sorry?
drainage, if you were at the front of the cemetery on the post road.
Yep,
Okay. The building is directly in the back.
correct.
And your house is on Spruce Street.
Correct.
Right behind it there. So I'm thinking that the drainage would be going the other way toward the middle of that property. I used to live on Homeacres Avenue, and my property backed up to that cemetery, and I know there was like a ditch there. That's the only wetland that I can think of.
Yes, that's the only wetlands you could, that is the wetland.
So that's a couple hundred feet from you, where that area.
It's about 100 feet from me. When I put my pool in, I had to get permission from the wetlands to put my filter up. So, it's close enough where I had to show where my pool was in order to put my filter in.
Okay, so, again, anyone else, any other questions for this gentleman? Go ahead. Mr. Hirsch, you had a question before.
So after all that, what exactly do you want us to do?
The approval from Mr. Salkis, is not what was approved to be built. There is nothing there that was approved in 2015.
Go ahead, Mr. Soto.
Well, I don't know who the surveyor was, I mean, but this as-built does not match your pictures, that's
No.
definitely. There's no swale between the fence and the wall, and you got 2 extra courses on the wall from what he's showing on an as-built. Actually, he's showing the swale coming up halfway on the fourth block down. So technically, there should only be 3, according to his as-built, there should only be 3.5 blocks above the swale.
Yes,
And
and that is,
you got 6 full ones.
right, and that is making that wall,
So this as-built is wrong, I mean, definitely wrong.
that is making that wall, what Mr. Griffith told me, 6 foot, which is okay for a residential neighborhood. The way it sits right there on that as-built plan, which is wrong. And I have pointed that out to Mr. Griffith, Ms. Palumbo, and numerous people on emails, including the city's attorneys. And yet they're saying that because they backfilled over the exposed drain pipe that was put in without a permit and illegally, that that wall is now 6 feet tall. Is only 6 feet tall. Yes, my reaction exactly. And this is coming from Mr. Griffith, including Mr. Carroll, Mr. Salkis, Mr. Harris, Mayor Blake, and Mr. Fournier. I have emails not with me at home saying that wall is only 6 feet tall, and to the state. I have reached out to the state building inspector, who has filed a complaint on our behalf to the, what's it called, the fraud board, because of the drawings. It is what it is. I mean, those drawings are wrong. Even if you look at, if you look at the other site plans on where it says edge of woods, they moved it over 85 feet to conform with that wall.
What does the state building inspector have to say?
It was not in their jurisdiction. They had an open ear. Mr. Griffith wasn't very happy that I reached out to the state building inspector saying it was an in-house problem and he would take care of it. It's honestly, this has been a joke from day one. We were here in 2016, if you guys remember.
I remember you had the video of the water pouring in your property.
Right. I had all the water coming on my property. We were told from Mr. Harris at that time that notices were sent out, but we have since determined that it was a minor amendment where they didn't have to send notices out. As you can see from Mr. Harris's site plan, he mentions retaining wall, yet there's no retaining wall on there. There is no elevation. Ms. Palumbo mentions elevation. Joe mentioned elevation changes, yet nobody enforced it. I'm sure there is planning and zoning regulations when over 1,000 yards of dirt is brought in from off-site to make this change. On site plan number 6, that I have number 6, there is a proposed elevation change that is nowhere near what has changed back there. They have manipulated these site plans, unbelievable, to conform to what they need done.
Okay, any other questions?
You know, also, they're washing cars back there on number 23 on a Sunday. You know, this is turning into a joke back there.
All right, is there anyone else speaking on this appeal? You can come forward. Any other questions for this gentleman before we let him go? No? Okay, okay. Go ahead, you can speak. You're up. You're up.
Pamela Hunter, 69 Spruce Street, Milford. I want to back up a step, if that's okay, because Mr. Hirsch had a really good question for us, and you asked, what are we looking for you to do? We would love to right the wrong that happened, and I don't know how we do that. That's something you can maybe help us with. I have lived on my property for 22 years, and as my neighbor stated, when the storage shed went up, we were told it was just going to be a storage shed. Over Columbus Day weekend, they started trucking in dirt. The dirt changed the elevation. They put the cement blocks up that created a retaining wall, and sitting on top of that is what they call the recycling bins. So if you look at, we had a storage shed and we had treed property. If you look at the buffer zones, if you were to look at an aerial view, one of the photos, I believe it's towards the beginning in the photographics, there is, I hope there is, there should have been an overview here. go in? Oh, sorry, it's on the cover. On the cover. Look at the cover. You see an aerial view of the back neighborhood of 273 Cherry Street. That back corner, there's one that's before they put up, they moved the recycling bins, and the other one's after. So you can see that the buffer zone of trees, which was maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet deep, and actually runs the length of the cemetery on either side, was taken out. In addition, the elevation change, what that did to the neighborhood in that back there is now, instead of looking at a cemetery, those pictures that we have for you and those that we have up here, we're looking at what looks like commercial property when we look across. And the other thing that's very interesting is, because of the elevation change, what ended up happening is the folks that are working on the property are now directly looking into our homes and into our yards. So that's not a big deal, except it is because it changed the whole scope and look of the property. If you look nowhere else on the property line, do you have anything like that? We actually took a couple of pictures from the street. If you are on Cherry Street and you look back, the only thing that you can see, unless maybe we had binoculars, but the only thing you can see visually is the back of a storage shed, or it's really the front, I think. You don't see, because they screened, you don't actually see what we see from our backyards at this point. Besides the visual disturbance, Doug mentioned there is noise on a regular basis. They brought in composting, and we were told that they were going to be storing back there in the recycling bins, and they brought in composting to the level that we checked with Department of Environmental Protection Agency, DEEP, and I was told that in order to compost off your own property, you had to have a permit. There's a whole leaf composting permit process, and Kings Highway Cemetery didn't do that. We were told that this wasn't a violation by the city. I contacted DEP. Tab 4 says health concerns. You will see that there was a notice of violation, that the cemetery had a truck out compost that was above and beyond what is allowed by law, and that the DEP confirmed it. At the time, they took out to the level of 3 cubic yards of leaves. Now, you see how big those blocks are? Right now, we're back up to 8 cubic yards. My concern about the composting actually emits something called volatile organic compounds. If you properly sited these bins for the level that they were going to use, they'd be 250 feet off of any property, let alone your home. I don't know if any of you guys have allergies. You add this into the air and you're out in your backyard. This one isn't in the packet, but I'll pass it around later. I spend a lot of time in my backyard, as my neighbors do. We garden, we have a puppy. You get this much churned up, it's a health problem. Last page of that particular packet, we've got a couple of articles in there that talk about leaf composting and how it can have health effects. And the last one happens to me, I didn't mind, my own allergist said that this was a health concern. This is only sited about 12 feet off of my property and 10 feet off of the neighbors that it's directly behind. The other health issue is that you saw the piles of dirt. You could just imagine that this dirt blows, so it's blowing onto the properties. I don't know about you guys, but I do my best housekeeping, but when you have dirt blowing in, we have some photos, I think they're in the packet, of what the snow looked like in the winter because the dirt was blowing back onto it. There has been a property value issue created because of this. My husband and I went to the Zoning Appeals Board when the October 1, 2016 grand list came out. I have under tab devaluation a letter we got on January 23rd. We were supposed to have a minor tax decrease. We went in front of the board, And instead of a tax increase, we had an 11% net decrease. That was based on bringing the photographs. That was the only change of anything. So our own city department looked at this and said this was a change. There are a packet in the very back that has the regulations. We went through line by line, and I want to come back on one other thing here. This is not about what was approved in 2015. There was a storage shed and recycling bins and no elevation change. Didn't look like it was, whoever approved that, it didn't look like it was going to do any damage. Who would have thought? These guys gave an easement based on what was projected. There was apparently a change of elevation that snuck its way in, truckloads of dirt that came in that we knew, we watched, we documented, and an ambiguity in the plan. And the decision, once it was made, appears to have favored Kings Highway Cemetery versus the neighbors. I mentioned privacy, I mentioned noise. The plantings in one of the photos towards the front, wherever you guys mentioned buffer zones and plantings, I believe it's within a year any plantings are supposed to obscure, I believe it's visual distances and visual disturbances. The arboretums, they're cute little things. They're about this much higher, and if you ever look at the top of an arboretum, it's very spindly still. Those are after 18 months. So what's planted, although I'm sure they're going to tell you they planted what was on the plan, and I'm back in the packet about halfway through, there's some documents in there that are going to show you what those arboretums look like today. One other thing that we touched on, but I'm going to circle back to. This shed appears to be a maintenance garage, not a shed. The permit that was issued was a special permit for 3 vehicles. There are 3 vehicles that are stored, and they come out every single day. And then something happens. All of the headstones were moved to the back of the property. They're in numerous pictures. You can see them out my window. The plows get stored in the back. 3 plows run out of that operation every single snowstorm. I don't know, there's 3 cemeteries, but they run about 24 hours. Here's the thing, you build something where everybody's window looks down, you know, it makes noise, it catches your eye, you're like, oh, okay. We know that they do things like washing cars because we've seen them. There's an air hose up there. So we've seen Napa vehicles come in to do maintenance. So clearly the scope, and you guys know these regulations better, but there is one of the regulations that we highlighted, says that you can't do garage work within a residential neighborhood. The special permit said we could store, not that we could work on. If you also look, one of the issues is the amount of room that is behind the storage shed, maintenance shed, and you can perform a lot of work back there.
Are you all set? Okay.
I think I'm done.
Any questions for this lady? I'm listening to you, but it's a cemetery again, so I can't imagine on a daily basis that it's like, like it's a construction site going all the time. Why would they bring in compost? I mean, I drove by there, I went in there Sunday to take a look, and everything was put away. The cement barriers that are there, I guess there's storage bins. There didn't seem to be a lot of stuff in them, so.
Well, when fall comes around, they're bringing leaves in on a daily basis. When the compost is fresh, it gets turned at least once a day. That probably takes 20 to 30 minutes. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's a payloader doing it. So if you work at home like I do, I have to shut my windows if they're open. That goes on for about 4 to 6 months minimum. Last year, they were composting through the spring. Whenever they're turning dirt over out there, that creates noise. And I can't tell you what they're doing, but I can tell you they were working out there. We were told in one of the many, many emails that their working hours would be between 8 and 4:30 Monday through Friday and 8 and noon on Saturdays. So they move the vehicles out every morning, and there are workers there coming and going and doing things. When they're using the air hoses, if you're out there, I don't know if you guys know the air hose, my dog jumps 6 feet. Sometimes when they're using the commercial trucks out in that yard, because it's not just storage, we all jump. So it's, you know, I'm not telling you that the noise runs from 8 a.m. to 4, but it's commercial noise. It's not my neighbor's kids playing noise.
Unfortunately, it's a cemetery, and it's like, what do we, you know, just like Mr. Hirsch said, you know, we've got a lot of things that was presented to us. So it's almost like, what can we do for you? It is a cemetery. They are working there. I can't imagine why they're working there as much as you say they're working there. Our other questions are, why is the city so involved with that property? You know, I can't imagine that. So maybe we'll have some answers on that soon.
We brought the city into the equation after the elevation changed and the retaining wall went up. And it's being referred to as a retaining wall and recycling bin. I will tell you, I remembered I had one last point. From top to bottom right now, whatever you want to call it, top of it to the bottom ground is 10 feet. It's not protected. Neighborhood kids come in and they climb on it. And there's nothing to stop. There's nothing to stop anybody. And is it trespassing? Yeah, but is it an attractive nuisance? They're doing work on the new Sitco up the street, and that's completely fenced. You know, this is something, you know, you wouldn't put a bulldozer out and expect the kids not to play on it. Well, this is you know, it's nice 18-inch blocks. They're up there playing on it.
Okay, go ahead. You had a question?
Yeah, again, what you're looking to, what if they complied with the site plan that they drew here showing, and they took 2 courses off the wall, would that satisfy you? I mean, they're showing 2 extra courses on here, so.
Oh,
Here's the thing.
no, hold on. Go ahead. You can finish. Go ahead. What do you have to say?
What I'll say is, number one, I don't think they would do that because they would lose the bulk of their storage.
Well, the as-built, it's not built to this as-built, so something's wrong there. I mean, so the city has the power to say you have to build to what your as-built. It's not to the as-built. Either it was lower and then they added 2 courses after the surveyor did the as-built. Something happened there, but it doesn't comply with this stamped as-built. So
They actually took out a course of, they've taken 1 course out since October of 2015, 16. So when it was first built, it had 1 more course. The as-built had to be done after, because they went up, these went up on 1 weekend. It was erected within 7 days. The as-built was done after it was constructed. And then they were required to remove 1 course already.
Okay.
an as-built is always done after it's constructed. After it's constructed, the surveyor comes back, he checks all the readings and records it, then it goes to zoning, and they look at it to make sure it was built according to how it was presented. So the as-built doesn't match the pictures, that's all I'm telling you.
We agree.
Okay, anyone else speaking on this? If you have something else to say on this. You want to talk again, sir? Because you've been up. I'm asking someone else who hasn't been up. And if you not, please be repetitious on anything. And
Well, somewhat repetitious. I'm Dennis Black. I live at 57 Spruce Street. Okay. As this project's been going on, and as it is, 2 of my neighbors to the left of me, looking at the houses on the left, that fence is put up. Okay. As I say that, Half that hill that's in those pictures belongs to the cemetery. You see the trees that we're talking about that they said is going to be a blocker in years to come. I just, you have the pictures up there previous from Doug, number 24, 25, 26. I have a pool in my backyard. Okay? The dirt just comes into the pool. During the snowstorm of this year, you can see what happens. And they're still working up there during the snowstorm. You know that. It's just, I need something done. That's what I need. I need something done. I mean, to live like that and look out your back window, have a cup of coffee on a Sunday, it's a beautiful sight. The blocks are coming apart. I'm just dissatisfied with the whole thing. We keep going around and round and round. This is another time we're going round and round and round. I don't know where it's going to end. Hopefully, it'll end soon. Have a good day.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else speaking?
Hi, my name's Dominic Cotton, 60 Corona Drive. Obviously, this is important to me. This is my neighborhood. I also ran for alderman last time around. Not that that's anything to do with anything, but I got the opportunity to meet my neighbors and to have a good look at the issues that were in front of us. I apologize, I'm coming in here late, so I don't mean to be repetitive over anything that anyone else has said. But we all back up and live to the cemetery here. Obviously, my house backs up to this too, further up. And, there's a great level of concern when I looked at my neighbor's properties, and I hear their concerns when things washed out, and I believe one of them explained to me that there were actually, caskets that if they didn't fix the walls that were going up to them, that would actually come out onto their property. So I take a look at their properties, and owing to the fact that I do understand that some of them got right-of-ways for electric and water, but looking at the back end of where their houses are, you got these huge mafia blocks, and they're not small. This is going up about a good 8 feet. And some of them were promised certain things. I don't know the specifics of those. But it seems to me that the way that this development went and what was explained to them, and when I investigated further and watched the washout drain and the pipe that kind of like goes out through the back of their property and out into the wetlands, I have to say I was slightly appalled. You know what? I'm building an addition onto my house. I back up to my neighbors, I get to understand that they know what I'm building, and they're comfortable with that. But you know what? With what was built on top of here, and if I was the neighbor that the cemetery was building upon, I would feel extremely distressed that I put my entire property value on something that looked very beautiful at one point in time, but now is some 8 to 10 foot block that's not a permanent wall, that, you know, could be moved around at any point in time. And I understand, you know, they do have to decompose their leaves and other things along those lines. But I don't think that this is what they projected to happen to them at the point that they thought that they had any kind of agreement with anybody. So, you know what? If your neighbor builds an 8 to 10 foot wall on top of probably a rise of about 6 to 8 feet, and it's not something that looks very nice to you, and you spent all this money, because I know some of them spent a lot of money, you know, building on their properties and expanding them and doing other things, I think you probably feel very distressed. And you'd go back and you would ask a lot of questions. And the questions of the people that they're asking are a cemetery association. And that's uncomfortable. You know what? I've been to a funeral this week and had to bury a friend. And I know how important a cemetery is in your area. But you still have to be respectful of your neighbors. And I feel that, you know, where I am on the street, it's respectful towards me, but what they built upon from a prior permits from a long period of time before is not. And so whatever can be done within that, you know, I'm certainly appreciative, and I'm appreciative of my neighbors. And you know what? Like I said, I don't think that you would want to be backed up to this either. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we should hear from our city planner, okay? We had heard from you, sir. What I'd like to do is let our city planner do his presentation. Maybe can have some answers as to why there'd be violations there. And then if there's anything of concern for you, because you've already been up, you can rebut some of the things that he had said. Well, that's what we're going to ask him. Okay.
Good evening. Dave Sulkus, for the record, City Planner and Executive Secretary of the Planning and Zoning Board. We're here tonight because I'm being appealed. We're not here tonight to review what the Planning and Zoning Board did in terms of their approvals of the site plan. We're here specifically because the applicant this evening said that the area is not zoning compliant and see the regulations. They submitted the regulations. Their appeal is based on, they think that the garage is being overworked. They disagree that the landscaping, screening, and buffer areas are not compliant. That they don't meet the landscape requirements. And that's the appeal this evening. I'm going to walk you through what I have to do for a zoning compliance. It's really very simple. The Planning and Zoning Board approves a plan. You may not agree with the plan that the Planning and Zoning Board approves. It may not have the details that you wish that it had, but it's still what the Planning and Zoning Board approves. My job at the end of a project is to look at what the Planning and Zoning Board approved and then what was built. Do they reasonably match? And in this case, they do. Not only do they match, but the area of the recycling area of the wall is actually smaller than what the planning board actually approved. The landscaping that was installed, they put in more landscaping than what was approved. I am sympathetic and I understand a lot of the testimony that was given tonight. There was a lovely stand of trees that was there that is not there now, and yes, there's a wall. You know, unless you own your neighbor's property and you can control that property, I always tell people, because they come into my office all the time, because we're one of the central clearinghouses for neighbor complaints, is that there's no guarantee to your view unless you're either directly on the ocean or directly on conservation land that is, you know, deeded in perpetuity to be conservation land. You can always expect changes. Sometimes they're pleasant, sometimes they're not. I need to remind this board that you have no statutory authority to question, to ask for changes, to alter an already approved site plan of the Planning and Zoning Board. You can't ask them or order anybody to lower a wall. It's unfortunate that in the plans that the board originally approved, there weren't a lot of details. And those details showed up on the as-built. That's okay. It's okay that they didn't show drainage that wasn't shown on that plan, but was later installed and ruled by the city to be a great improvement. We always like to see people improve their properties. The fact of the matter is that this wall, as ugly as it is, with the fill that's behind it, which, again, this wall was shown to the Planning and Zoning Board being on a slope, and it was going to be filled, it meets with what the board approved. For you to overturn my decision, the applicant needs to show something in the regulations that I did wrong. Point out in the regulations something that says, Dave, you did not follow that regulation to allow the issuance of a certificate of zoning compliance. That was not done. Complaining about what's built there, not liking what's built there, saying there's been changes that was what was built there. What was built there complies, whether we like it or not, with what the planning board approved. And that's pretty much it for me. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, I have a question. When was the most recent approval on the planning and zoning?
I want to say it was 2015. This project has had a history. They'd come back in multiple times over the years for changes and tweaks to the site. This has been an active cemetery that predates Homemaker Avenue. You know, you move in next to something, we've heard it be called commercial. You know, is it commercial? It's a cemetery. Is it in a residential zone? That's where all of our cemeteries are. Does it predate the housing that surrounds it? Yes, it does.
Do you think in 2015, when that was done, was there a lot of concern at that time, or very little? Any way of knowing?
We had a public meeting. There weren't any issues. There were never any issues brought up previous to when this wall was constructed. If a member of the public disagrees with something the Planning and Zoning Board has done, you know, there is a statutory time limit where you can appeal them. And again, I think this project goes back to on and off, and I'm doing this from memory, the early 2000s. There would have been multiple times when they came to the Planning and Zoning Board for someone to have appealed the activities that they had asked the Planning and Zoning Board for, and that the Planning and Zoning Board had approved.
Can we find out if there's any violations?
There are no violations. Had there been violations on the site, I wouldn't be able to issue my zoning compliance. I'm standing here before you as acting in my capacity as the Chief Zoning Enforcement Officer and Executive Secretary of the Planning and Zoning Board. There are no zoning violations on this site from this project.
Go ahead, Mr. Soto.
Mr. Sulkus, the only question I have is on the as-built showing the height of the wall from the top of the swale is 6 feet, and the picture here shows it
Yeah,
and there is no swale between the wall and the fence.
Well, what you need to find out is when those pictures were taken. Mr. Gaudiasi correctly said that, you know, these things had been submitted to the city and had been reviewed at the city attorney's office. And I will tell you that we had looked at pictures and we had looked at the as-built. We're going with the as-built.
So it's built this way then?
It's built what is shown on the as-built.
Okay. So these pictures were before that?
They may have been taken before the project was complete, before the final grades were set.
Okay.
Ms. Ferranti?
Unless I'm mistaken, I think I just heard you say in your testimony that it's okay if there were things that were built that were not on the plan approved by the Planning and Zoning Board. How is that okay?
It's okay if it doesn't violate the regulations. So what we're looking at, when this came to the Planning and Zoning Board, we were looking at a, call it what you will, recycling area, walled off materials area located in a particular location. It has to be X number of feet from the property line. They're showing a landscape plan. It has to be landscaped. That's fine, and that's what we ended up with in the end. We, we being the Planning and Zoning Board, doesn't regulate drainage. If you want to go and make an improvement to your property now for drainage, you know, hopefully you'll do it with good engineering practices, but we wouldn't give you a permit for that. That's not something Planning and Zoning does. The cemetery went and they made improvements to their property that went beyond the plan but didn't violate the regulations. We have no issue with people going beyond what we approve if it's better. So for instance, more landscaping. We're not going to turn around and say, oh, the plan only called for 20 arborvitae, you put in 50, take out the other 30. We don't do that. Oh, the plan shows that the recycling area is, and I'm just making up this number, 1,000 square feet. The plan called for it being 1,000 square feet, but you only built it to 800 square feet. That's a classic case of less is more. We're not going to make you build it bigger than you want it.
But what about the grading that everyone's talking about that was not present on the plan?
The grading was shown on the plan. The location of that wall was shown on the plan, and the grades were there. There wasn't a lot of discussion, oh, how much you're going to do, how much you're going to fill in there. But the plan, when it was presented, showed the location and that was there, and you know, the topography is the topography.
Would you have any idea, and I mean, this is almost like a foolish question, on why there's so much activity there on a daily basis? The way they're stating there's like, it's hard to realize that on a daily basis. Why would they be changing the grading? And
well, I would hope that business on their part wouldn't be that good. But you would have to ask them that question. Again, you know, they came to the board and said, you know, we're building a maintenance facility. They built the maintenance facility. They've, you know, what they told the board in terms of the construction and the placement of things is what they have done. If you have some questions as to how they operate the cemetery, you can ask them that. But whatever those answers are, that doesn't affect me issuing my certificate of zoning compliance based on the set of plans that was submitted to the Planning and Zoning Board and approved by the Planning and Zoning Board.
okay, thank you. Go ahead. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Mr. Sulkus, so you approved a maintenance facility, not a storage shed?
I would have to go.
Oh, okay.
I would have to go look at the file, but it was explained to us that there was going to be a garage.
Doing maintenance.
There was going to be an office there. There was going to be plumbing in it. Okay. They were going to run sewer lines to it, which I guess they had gotten an easement through Mr. Gaudiasi's property, and then they decided to put in septic instead. So I mean, this is going to be an active, relatively speaking, facility.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
If you want to speak, sir, we'll give you a few minutes. Just go ahead.
state my name again, or are we good? Do I need to state my name again? Yep. Douglas Gaudiosi, 63 Spruce Street. Mr. Salka said that this has been going ongoing activity since, what, 2001? I'm going to bring this up to you. I read this earlier. Zoning regulations right here have been violated per what Mr. Salka The site plan is only good for 10 years.
Do you want to take a look?
Okay, they're approving stuff in 2015 on a site plan that has been approved 10 years. Per planning and zoning regulations, after 10 years, the site plan has to be submitted as a new site plan is submitted. It just can't be approved from. They have to go to wetlands, engineering, everything else that is normally submitted during a site plan.
Okay.
That did not happen here.
All right. Can I ask you that question, Mr. Salkus? And when would a site plan would expire? Because our talk right now and our questions ended up around 2015, when was the last hearing for things.
2015, they updated plans that they had periodically been back to the board for. They had been working on various plans and various construction projects in the cemetery from that time. The cemetery is never complete. There was no expiration of this particular project. This project had been back to the board multiple times, had been tweaked multiple times, along with other projects in the cemetery that were part of those applications, including, I believe, there was a columbarium that also came in at the same time. So they started the work, and they finally finished the work. We have no expiration in the city for finishing work once it's started. So Mr. Soda can start building his house today, and if it takes him 20 years to finish it, 30 years to finish it, he can take that time, and in 30 years he'll be looking for some zoning compliance, and at that time we'll say, oh yeah, you did start it 30 years ago and you finished it now. That's perfectly fine.
Thank you.
Again, you have the site plan. It's planning and zoning, 71313, whatever, it started. It says 10 years from the approval date. That is a planning and zoning regulation. If it's not started within a year, it expires and must be reapproved. It's right there. I mean, anybody can read it. Please read it out loud. You know, I'd be curious if I'm reading something different there.
Where did you get this?
Off the planning and zoning site? It's the one with the star next to it.
All right, so it's a 7.1.3.11. Are you familiar with that one, Mr. Salkus? Okay, I'm sorry. The one with the big star? The one with the big star.
The one with the big star.
Okay.
Is that right?
You know what, hand this to Mr. Salkus and let him take a look at it.
So Mr. Salka said that anybody can start a project at any time, and it just goes on forever. The state has a 10-year expiration date on site plans. I have talked to the state, I mentioned earlier, to the state building inspector. I even talked to wetlands in the state. There's a 10-year limit. That's a state limit and also a city limit. So for him to say that this could go on forever, that means they could do whatever they want back there, whenever they want. As much as they want.
He's talking about ongoing approvals in
right.
general.
And right there, the
general.
site plan says it's only approved for 10 years. That site plan that he approved in February, where is it? It's in here.
All right, you know what, he's looked through it, he probably has an answer,
Okay.
and that's going to be it.
First of all, what he presented to you is not in our regulations. Those are state regulations that aren't in our
Oh,
regulations.
they're not.
That's a city regulation.
That's a state
State
regulation.
regulation.
The state is more than welcome to, enforce their own regulations. We have to go by ours, and our regulations, mirror to the state to a degree, saying that you have to start within a year. As far as we're concerned, the cemetery had started their overall projects within that time frame and had come back to the board multiple times informing them. And not only that, they can ask for extensions. But again, the act of coming back to the board and actually starting the work, that's all we look for. And they had started the work, and it just took them a long time to finish.
Okay, so clarification, that is not our regulation, that is a state regulation, not a Milford regulation.
Correct.
Okay.
That regulation I just handed him came off the off the city regulation board. That is a city.
Saying now it was a city. And
It's also a state regulation. The state says.
the state regulation, well, unfortunately, the city, all cities have their own regulations, and that's what would have to be followed.
Exactly. That is a city regulation right there. The state also has a tenure, but the one I presented you right now is a city regulation. That came directly from the Milford Planning and Zoning Regulation website.
You sure there wasn't a link to the state?
No,
That's how you
no.
got it? 'Cause
It's the city.
if you go on the building department, they have links to the state building code.
No, it is a city regulation. I mean, I could pull it up on my phone if you'd like to see it while he's
Okay.
looking at it.
Okay.
It is a city regulation.
So we have to wrap this up.
Okay.
So we have a difference of opinion here now on where they came from, so.
All right. May I read? I'm all set, right?
Mr. Chair, I want to correct myself because he highlighted this, and the highlight is over the two. We do mirror the state regulation. We have that in there. Needless to say, the project still started. So yes, we do have 7.1.3.12 in our regulation, but it talks about when work starts. And again, the work had started. It was perfectly valid.
Okay, so that is our regulation, but we have no end date to it.
Correct.
Okay.
That regulation states work must be completed within 10 years. It's right there in black and white. And the one right below it says it becomes null and void if it's not.
And if you want me to make this more interesting, the site plan, that's just talking about the site plan. This was a special permit. Special permit has its own rules. And again, it met the requirements and rules of the special permit. So again, the applicant did what the applicant needed to do, and the project was finally finished. And again, all I do is go in and see what was the last approval that the board gave. Does it match that approval? And it does.
Okay. Any other questions? We have to wrap this thing up. We've been at it a long time. We pretty much all know what's going on with it. Go ahead. All right, go ahead. This will be the last question. This is directed to the city planner.
Yes. In our appeal, there was an addendum 2 and 3. We've specifically said that our grounds of our appeal were noncompliance with the founding zoning regulations, inclusive of but not limited to. As you can see, we put together very large documents, and this would have been 30 or 40 or 50 pages. So I just want to refute that we weren't just citing those few little pieces there. And I understand that what Mr. Sulkus just said was that if he approved a regulation that he wasn't able to approve. I'm questioning 5.11.1 that says, no building or use shall create any dangerous, injurious, noxious, or otherwise detrimental condition so as to adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare of the neighborhood or community. If you're going to tell me that this doesn't adversely affect our health and welfare, and specifically the composting that the city shouldn't have allowed because it's in direct violation, you have to follow state regulations with regard to public health and safety. It's in your own zoning regulations. So how could we find that that was okay to cite that 10 feet off the property line for the amount of storage of composting that they were preparing to do?
Mr. Chair, may I respond?
Yes, Mr. Sulkus, yeah, indeed, you have the last statement right now.
That determination was made by the Planning and Zoning Board in its approval of the special permit. Those are the conditions in which they have to weigh the approval or disapproval of a special permit. The board obviously weighed in their approval. Whether you agree with it or not, they agreed to the special permit to allow this activity to be located where it's located.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We're all set. Okay. All right. Before I close this hearing, any discussion right here? No? No? You want to leave this open? Do you want to continue it? Do you want to make a decision before I close this hearing? So, what are your comments?
I think it's getting late. Joe, I think it's getting late. I think we ought to leave it open until next meeting.
Anyone else thinking that long?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right. Okay. We'll leave. We're going to leave this hearing open. We're not going to make a final discussion on this right now. A decision. I'm sorry. We'll see what we can gather as far as any more information before the next meeting. Okay. So this is open. We're going to move on to item number 3.
Item number 3, 606 Gulf Street, MBP 28/520/24, R18. Kevin Crusaden, Esquire, for Paul and Jean Tupper, owners. Varies section 3.1.4.1, side yard setback to 9.4 feet, where 15 feet required. 4.1.4, roof eave projection to 8.2, where 12 permitted, to build breezeway between residence and garage.
Mr. Crusaden, just hold on 1 second, please. Can he take those, or he can't
No.
take them? You have to leave those?
Sir, if you've submitted materials for the board's consideration, you have to leave them with the department.
Okay. Mr. Crusaden, hold on. We're going to take just a couple of minute recess.
started a divorce for her, and then she went to Denise Davis. Because I was doing the title search. Yeah. That was her. She had some company, and then she went belly up.
Metropolis Corporation?
Metropolis, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know what, I was looking through the land records, just trying to see what happened.
She had a long-standing boyfriend, and then they got married, and then she came, and I did the closing of the paperwork, and then she called me about a divorce, and I said, Denise can't go again. I can't remember the boyfriend's name. So, and then I never heard, this is about 2 years ago. I don't know if she grew the cool, obviously.
Yeah, they bought this 2 years ago. Yes.
Because they bought this right at the same time that Jerry Murphy died. Jerry lived next door to them.
Where Lenny bought it?
And then he saw, no,
Mealy?
the other side.
Mealy's side.
Yeah, Jerry Murphy died, and then his wife moved back to New York City. Now
What's going on?
anybody asks about a high house, one and two storage. You're gonna go 35 feet.
All right, we're ready to resume. Mr. Crusaden, you're up.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Kevin Crusaden. My office is at 3 Lafayette Street here in Milford. I'm here on behalf of Paul and Jean Tupper. Jean Tupper's here in the audience tonight with her son, Paul. If you have any questions for her or through me, she's here as the applicant, the owner and the applicant. I have a couple of things to present to the board. One of them is an affidavit stating that the signs have been posted. The mailing notice affidavit and mailing notices have already been filed with Ms. Green, and I have 3 letters of support from neighbors, the 2 adjoining neighbors, Mr. Wisniewski and Mr. Mealy, and then also Mr. Ward. And I have an extra copy of the CAM report short form if that was required. That would be great. Yeah, I don't have it. This is a fairly simple application. The house currently sits on a lot that, although oversized for the zone, is narrow for the zone by 10 feet. It has 3 existing structures on it. There's the principal structure, there's the garage immediately behind the principal structure, and then there's another garage that's closer to the access drive that's about 3.5 feet off the property line. On the southerly side property line. So the proposal is to connect the breezeway from the house to the garage that's immediately behind the house. Right now there is a cement pad with a generator on it. The generator would be moved. There's no variance required for where the generator is being proposed to being moved to. The hardship is the width of the lot and the fact that we have the structures that are in place already. The reason for the variance is that when you connect a principal structure to an accessory structure, it becomes considered one structure, and the city considers that as now you need a setback request as if it was a principal structure versus an accessory structure. So if the side yard setback is 15 feet and it's connected to a garage that's 9 feet, 9 or 9.5 feet like this garage is, then you need to either get a variance in order to connect that because it now becomes considered one structure. So I'm available to answer any questions. It's a fairly simple application.
Questions? No questions? Okay, anyone else here speaking in favor? Anyone here speaking in favor of this? Is there anyone opposed to this application? No further questions? Okay, this does not really affect anything because of the way the property is. Okay, all right, this hearing's closed. Go ahead. If you have a
I make a
motion
motion to
and no
approve.
discussion? Any discussion? No?
No.
No? Okay.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Approval is based on the hardship of the narrowness of the lot.
A motion to approve, and we have a second on the motion?
Second. With the motion.
It's already been, we are, Ms. Ferranti had seconded it, okay? But you can vote on it. Mr. Hirsch? Mr. Hirsch?
With the motion.
Mr. Soda?
With the motion.
Ms. Ferranti?
With the motion.
Ms. Valakut?
With the
I'm
motion.
with the motion, it's approved.
Item number 4, 20 South Street, MBP 49/604/5, R5. Jason D. Giandomenico, applicant for Wilton Wright and Betsy Wright, owners, vary section 4.1.4, projection to 0 feet where 4 feet permitted to build a 3-season porch.
Good evening. My name is Jason E. Giandomenico. I'm representing Building Concepts. We were here at the last meeting, and I think there was some discussion about the existing patio being on the survey and whatnot. So we met with the zoning officer and put all the paperwork back in, and I believe the survey, they had an old survey from the one that we had put in for the application. So the original questioning was there was a deck going in where they didn't know where the patio was. So we are going exactly where that patio is. We're basically just repairing it and bringing it up to proper code. So,
Any questions? Some of us were here last month, and as the gentleman has stated, came back, made some clarifications. So, any questions? All right. Anyone else speaking in favor? Anyone else speaking in favor? Is there anyone here opposed to this application? No further questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Because I wasn't here this month, last month, just to clarify, this patio is existing and it's going to be turned into the 3-season porch?
so the patio is existing. We're putting a roof cover over it, but the existing slab is not to code. It's cracking, falling apart. We're putting a new deck with proper footings in its place,
Same
not breaking the footprint. Yep, not breaking the footprint. Going the same location and bringing it up to proper code.
Further questions? Okay, this hearing's closed. Okay, discussion last month, they didn't state that there was a deck there, so he's got all that clarified, so looks like it's in order.
Yeah,
We need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Approval based on the existing lot predating the zoning.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second on the motion. Mr. Hirsch,
With the motion.
Mr. Soda,
With the motion.
Ms. Ferranti,
With the motion.
Ms. Valkett.
With the motion.
I'm with the motion, it's approved.
Thank you.
Item number 5, 30 Orchard Road, MVP 39/609/7, R10, Paul Duff for CT Houses LLC, owner. Vary section 3.1.4.1, front yard setback to 12 feet where 25 feet required. 4.1.4, projection to 8 feet where 21 feet permitted. 6.2.3, expansion of a non-conforming structure to build an addition.
My name is Paul Dew. I represent CT Houses. I've got some paperwork to hand out to you guys. That's right.
Yes, please go forward.
So basically, I am trying to turn in a 3-season porch into a living space, not changing any of the footprint. I would like to add a little roof over the front door and just close it off and make a bigger living space inside the house. It's a non-conforming lot. The house was built close to the road, and that's why I need the variance.
So it's not coming any closer to the road than what's
No,
already-
it's not. The
what's
only thing
already
that
there.
would be coming closer to the road would be the roof over the front door, if
It's
I were to
the
get
the
that.
enclosure and the little part of the roof. Okay.
Yes.
Questions? No
So-
question? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
the front porch that you're modifying, it's already enclosed, you're just making it
Correct, it's already enclosed.
insulated
It's
and
got
heated.
windows. Yeah, I'm just gonna put heat in it and
Okay, any questions? No? Okay. Anyone else speaking in favor? Lady coming up behind you.
sorry.
You're speaking in favor, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Catherine Cowper. I live at 37 Orchard Road, right up the street from the home. I've lived there for 41 years. And on the street, We have big houses, small houses, old ones, and remodeled ones. And this is one house that had such wonderful characteristics, even when it had the front porch. And I think his idea of incorporating the front porch into the living room is a fantastic idea, and I fully support it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else speaking in favor? Okay. Anyone here opposed? If you're opposed, please come forward. Would you like someone to take that microphone down for you so you can come in front of the podium? That would be good.
Just tell him I'm your surrogate father.
Thank you.
I'm a surrogate father. He made me say that.
Thank you.
So please allow me to introduce myself. My name is John Tartaglio. I live in the home next door, 34 Orchard Road, next to Mr. Dew, owner of 30 Orchard Road, who's requesting the variance. So to be clear, I strongly oppose Mr. Dew's request. There are two pieces of case law which the result has been a denied variance. You can reference them, Rotman versus Zoning Board of Appeals of Milford and Amendola versus the Zoning Board of Appeals of West Haven to see the detailed reasons why this should be denied. The two main reasons, just to make it really simple, there's no hardship. There's no unusual hardship is what the zoning board needs. And what he's saying and what the person in favor is saying, sure, it would look nice, but I think it would be out of character with the area. So we have a situation very similar in Rotman versus Zoning Board of Appeals, where this is a self-created hardship. There's very clearly in the town's test in reviewing the variance request, it states that adherence to the strict letter of zoning ordinance must be shown to cause unusual hardship. And I think you're just going to be hard-pressed to find unusual hardship in this case. This is a preference, just to be completely clear. There's space in the backyard. If he wants to make more living space, that's fine. I'm not opposed to him staying within what his rights are and what you guys approve as zoning laws. So especially as a contractor, I would assume he would do his due diligence in knowing what he's able to build within zoning laws and what he could do without a variance. So the case law also exists which disqualifies granting the variance due to personal hardship. And that's in Amendola versus Zoning Board of Appeals in West Haven, and it specifically states that the law precludes granting a variance based on a property owner's personal preference for constructing an addition that is frustrated by zoning regulation. I hope you agree that there's no unusual hardship. At the end of the day, I think we have somebody who's coming in looking to flip a property, make a profit, which is awesome. I actually think it's great that we're trying to turn a house that looks, to be honest, like a wreck into something that's nice and better for the neighborhood. My problem is that, again, we would be setting a precedent. So if you guys grant this, the only thing that you're going to hear going forward is a variance was approved to be 12 feet from the street. Nobody will remember the details of this years down the road. Nobody will know his exact plan. And you're setting a precedent if you grant this particular variance. So while I think it looks nice, again, flip it for a profit, awesome, totally agree, make it look nice, great, stay within what the regulations are. I also have 15 signatures from other neighbors, which also agree that this kind of precedence is not good for the Morningside neighborhood community. So that's my take on it.
Okay. You have a question, Mr. Soda? We have a question for you.
My question to you is, do you realize he is putting a rear addition on too that doesn't need any variances?
Yeah, so my concern,
So your concern,
again,
wait, I just want to,
Yeah.
your concern is that little roof over the front steps?
so when you say yes to a variance and somebody else comes up here again, there's a precedence of somebody
Didn't we
who's...
give you one last year for your garage?
It
I
was
think?
actually a few minutes ago. The unusual quote-unquote hardship was the length to make a ramp.
I understand
So
that.
I get where you're coming from. Again, think you'd be hard-pressed to find an unusual hardship that his land creates. So do you think everybody's going to come in here with the exact plot plan, Mr. Soda, knowing exactly that he already had that within his footprint? Or do you think that people would say, oh, the front yard was granted a variance and it's 12 feet from the street, why wouldn't I be able to? Just in your experience on the board, do you think people are going to be that detailed, or do you think they are going to...
You're talking a little roof over existing steps.
I'm talking about
The
granting...
steps are there already.
I'm talking about granting a variance for what's a 3-season porch to living space. I'm talking about the precedence that you set, saying yes to a house that's already so close to the street, and that's all people will know going forward. Nobody's again, it's the precedence. That's what people care about. You're saying yes to the precedent, and that I'm not okay with. That's why I'm voicing this opinion. That's why people are concerned. Just to be super clear. Again, I have no problem with a flip. I think it's great for the community. That's not my issue.
Can you make the signatures part of the record?
Sure.
Yeah.
You gonna do it? You want me to do it?
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome to check it.
All right, anyone else speaking against this?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Mark Reba. I live at 3 Parkland Place, which is in the Morningside neighborhood of where Orchard Road is located. My concern about this application is, as Mr. Tartaglio mentioned, that when you look at this application, it's for a setback variance to 12 feet. And I just want to, because this is kind of the first time I've heard any more specifics about the application, but I feel I heard that the variance is being requested to convert a 3-season room to a 4-season room. I mean, that doesn't say that on here. So I think what Mr. Tartaglio, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but so I guess maybe I'll speak for myself, but my point is that somebody could look at this and say, oh, they were just granted a 12-foot front setback, period. There's nothing on here that makes any statement about change of use. So I don't know if that means that this application is incomplete or whether it's just a part of the normal course of business. So I do have a concern as well about the precedent that this particular application, as it is written, creates. I just addressed this board earlier this winter regarding an application for a deck over on my street, and I would be concerned that if this was kind of approved without any clarification, that somebody else could say, well, you granted them a 12-foot setback, what about mine? So I'm just looking for a little clarification again. Is this in fact clear, or is there something that's missing here?
It is clear because the 12-foot setback already exists. So when you're doing anything at all, that's why that's brought up again.
But the structure is already 12 feet into the setback.
Correct. And so he's building on the original footprint. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Harris. So the 12-foot setback is brought up because of the request of what he's doing.
The existing structure is a 3-season porch, which is a projection off the house. The plan is to convert the 3-season porch to living space, year-round living space, thus expanding the non-conforming structure.
But Mr. Harris, if it's a 3-season porch with windows in it now, you're telling me he needs a variance to go to 4-season?
Currently, the house is not the porch, but the house itself is barely inside the setback. So it's non-conforming as to its location. The three-season porch is a projection off the house. So the plan to convert that three-season porch to year-round living space is extending the walls of the house farther out into the setback. That's why it's an expansion of the non-conforming structure.
But it's not a
But it's
typical
not,
porch, it's
a
already
porch with
enclosed.
windows
That
already.
doesn't matter?
It just doesn't have heat.
Again, the application is to expand a non-conforming structure. There's also some setbacks issues. But the porch is a projection off the house. It's not part of the living space of the house. So by converting it to year-round use, the house is actually the living space of the house, and the structure of the house is expanding out by that conversion.
Well, in the past, I've walked in and got a permit to enclose an open porch that was existing with a roof over it and turn it into a three-season, and I didn't have to get a variance. So I'm a little confused.
There's a regulation that permits an open porch to be enclosed if certain criteria are met.
So, Mr. Chairman, I guess to my point, this application is complete, so it's understood that if anyone's reading this, that they would know that this application is to convert a three-season porch to a four. It wouldn't be taken literally that someone 5 months from now or 5 years from now could say, oh, they were just granted a 12-foot setback.
Should that have been included, Mr. Harris? We're looking at the setback, we're not looking at the actual use. But you in turn
No,
had
the
said
u-
we're,
the use
we're
is
adding
so-
to the,
No,
we're
no.
adding to the nonconformity, so shouldn't that have been stated?
The use conforms. The use is single family. It's the structure itself which is non-conforming. So by converting the porch to the house, the front yard setback for the house is now 12.4 feet. 'Cause the projection is going away. It's being turned into the house. Thus, you know, the wall of the house is here, originally here, and now you have, and then there's a porch. This wall's coming down, and new walls are going around. They're pushing the house out towards the street, the living space of the house.
Sir, you have an agenda in front of you, and we have the actual application. You can take a look at this if you'd like, and on the application, it states what the use is going to be. So it's not put entirely on the agenda, but we have it here on the application.
Okay.
If you want to take a look at this.
I have a copy of it. Thank you, sir. In addition, if I could just make another point, you know, variance requests, you know, are difficult issues to begin with. But I know particularly in our neighborhood, as I stated to you back in January, when I opposed an application back then on our street, you know, the neighborhood is tight, and it's getting tighter. Because buildings are coming down, lots are getting maxed out, non-conforming lots are being, again, maxed out. So I'm just leery of variances, you know, without specifics. I know it states on here now, thank you for pointing it out. But when a variance is requested and there are also other options available, to proceed to add to the living space without a variance, I think that needs to be considered. For example, and I don't have a plot plan in front of me, but I believe the backyard has 37 feet setback from the current house to the property line. I don't know, is that correct?
Correct, 37.3.
There's 37 feet back there, so they're allowed 25, is that correct? So I guess my point is that with variances in general, you know, when there are other options available, I ask the board to consider those. And I also have another question, if I may. If this variance is approved, does that grandfather in a height variance for this porch so that either the current builder or whoever buys this house could put a second story on that porch and reference this variance approval?
Mr. Chairman, can I answer that? Variances are tied to the submitted materials. So if someone is proposing something at a single story, that's part of the variance. They then cannot turn around and build on top of it, because that wasn't part of the original approval.
Mm-hmm. So that's, and I understand that's not a part of this request.
No, this is proposed.
But could somebody buy this house and then say, I want to put a second story above this 12-foot living space, and I want to cite the fact that I was given a variance back in 2018 for the 12-foot projection?
Approvals are tied to the submitted materials. So if the submitted materials show a one-story structure, that's what you have.
I understand.
If you want anything more, you have to ask for it.
So it would require a variance in the
Yes.
future?
Mm-hmm.
It would?
Yes.
A second floor over and above the porch?
Yes, because the second floor wasn't part
was not
of the
included
original
in
variance
the,
request.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
But Mr. Salkis,
just-
could somebody come in, say, right now and buy this house and vertically expand it above that porch and put a second floor on it? Because now you told us you can vertically expand off the existing footprint.
Current department policy is that vertical expansions are permitted. That is currently being challenged.
So right now, somebody could put a second floor over that porch without a variance, just so you know.
Right now?
Right now.
Without a variance being approved or disapproved?
Absolutely. He could put a second floor over that porch, and there's no variance required.
Mr. Soto is correct. Current department policy permits vertical expansions of non-conforming structures.
So you ought to consider what you want there. Do you want a second floor, or do you want a little porch roof? What would look nicer in your neighborhood? Because, I mean...
Okay, thank you for your clarification. Just to be clear on my position, Mr. Chairman, I do request that the committee deny the application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in opposition? Mr. Dew, you can rebut anything if you'd like. You have the final word.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that, you know, I'm just, like you guys know, I'm just trying to finish off something that's existing. It's already there. The footprint is there. Not doing anything except bringing that in. My neighbor who spoke earlier does have, you know, he's building a house right now, right on my property line. You guys granted variances that my driveway's here and he's right here. So, and he's putting a two-story, you know, addition on his house, and, you know, I'm living with that. All I'm looking to do is finish what I gotta do, and, you know, straighten the place out, make it more livable, keep the neighborhood up.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before I close this? No? Okay, this hearing's closed. Okay, let's have your thoughts. Mr. Hirsch, got some thoughts?
Yeah, Joe, I'm just not seeing the hardship, but on the other hand, I have these 15 signatures, and only one of them lives on Orchard Road, so I don't know where these people live or what their stake or what their dog in the fight is, but they're not next door neighbors, even close neighbors to this proposed building.
Thank you. No, I'm sorry, we closed the hearing. So, the discussion? No? Motion's approved, denied, yeah, discussion.
I mean, my feeling there is, the porch is existing. You're only asking for that little roof over the existing stairs. And I mean, we've approved more for other people. And I don't really see a problem here. I mean, the guy could go in tomorrow and get a permit to put a second floor over that porch and have twice the living space on that whole house. And I mean, that's just my feeling. You guys decide what you want to do.
Any other comments? We need a motion. Ms. Falcott, you look like you're about to say something. You have any opinions?
Well, they were talking a lot about, I think some of the neighbors were referencing a flip, or at some point that they thought that maybe this house was going to be turned over in some capacity.
Okay, we need a motion. Put your thoughts together. We can approve it or deny it. There's very little to approve with conditions because we're only talking about a small addition here, so.
I think by and large, we try to minimize variances. We try really hard to find alternatives, but something like this is something that is generally straightforward for us because the footprint is existing. The porch is already there. The porch is already enclosed. As far as, you know, what the house is going to look like from the street or how close it's going to be, everyone's already living with it. It's already there.
If I may, though, the difference is with this is not a residential, somebody to live here. This is a commercial, this is for profit. So I think in the past where you may have granted a variance in the situation, this is claiming a hardship in for a for-profit enterprise. It's a little different.
Okay, you have your thoughts. We still need a motion.
I'll try my motion. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Approval is based on the existing footprint where it is, and, you know, that's it.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second on the motion. Ms. Falcott?
I'm with the motion.
Ms. Ferranti?
With the motion.
Mr. Soda?
With the motion.
Mr. Hirsch?
Oppose the motion.
I'm with the motion. It passes.
Item number 6, 183 Point Beach Drive, MBP 30/613/38, R7.5, Thomas Lynch for 296 LLC, applicant Rocco and Natalina Sirace, owners, exit, section 3.1.4.1, vary lot 1, area of 6,126 square feet, and lot 2, area and of 6,514 square feet, to allow re-subdivision application to Planning and Zoning Board for 2 single-family dwellings where high water line has shifted from 1927 map.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just for the record, my name is Thomas Lynch. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Lynch, Trimbicki, and Boynton, and my office is located here in Milford at 63 Cherry Street. And I'm here tonight representing my client, 296 LLC, and its principals, Greg Field and Angelo Lisi, who are with me here tonight. And also with me is Ron Wasmer from Connecticut Civil Group. And we're before you tonight with an application to vary Section 3141 of the zoning regulations to permit us to then move on to the second stage of the administrative approvals for a two-lot subdivision of this property located at 183 Point Beach Drive in the Point Beach section of Milford. Now, right from the outset, I'd like to stress that our presentation to you tonight, in basic contradiction to some of the other comments that you heard during the previous applications, this application, in my opinion, presents a clear legal hardship that would require this board to grant a variance. You're going to be hearing terms such as avulsion and erosion, and you're going to be hearing Ron speak about Connecticut survey standards for setting distances to measure the mean high tide line for a piece of property that's located along the shoreline. But the situation that we have here is my clients are the contract purchasers of this property. All of the records that are shown in City Hall in terms of deed transfers, in terms of the assessor's records, also a 1974 survey that's on file for the adjoining property at 191 Point Beach Drive that shows a measurement of the common boundary line between this property and that, all show that approximately 140 feet to 138 feet of depth was part of this property when it was first shown on the 1927 subdivision map, the first exhibit in my handout to you. That's the subdivision of the Point Beach area owned by the Merwin estate, and as I mentioned, that map was filed in 1927. This property is shown on our survey is actually the combination of 3 40 by 140 foot lots on that survey map. So again, referencing the handout that I just gave to you, unfortunately, the records in City Hall for a 1927 map are pretty sketchy. This is the best copy that we were able to obtain from our title search, but it shows the location of the lots basically on the far easterly end of Point Beach Drive. And the scaled distance for the measurement from Point Beach Drive to the mean high tide line on that map is 140 feet. The second item that I included in the handout is a copy of the assessor's records for 183 Point Beach Drive. And if you look at the second and third page of the assessor's records, where it says landline valuation, it shows size of the property as being 0.37 acres, the frontage 120 feet, and then if you flip to the third page, it shows depth 140 feet. So based on those calculations, and keep in mind this property is located in an R75 zone, where the zoning requirement is that each lot, to be considered a conforming lot, consists of 7,500 square feet. Based upon those calculations, the size of the property would be some 16,800 square feet, easily dividable into two 7,500 square foot lots. The problem, and this is where Ron will be going into a little bit more detail in his presentation to you, the problem is when we had the property surveyed, based on current Connecticut standards that surveyors have to follow to determine the high tide line, in fact, since 1927, the high tide line has actually shifted so that the water line is now some 15 or 20 feet closer to Point Beach Drive than it was back in 1927. So I started my presentation to you talking about the term avulsion. That is basically what happens when waves hit shoreline property and sand moves backwards or forward. And actually in the Melba Street area here in Milford, the properties along Melba Street have actually become larger over a period of time because of tides coming in. Along the Point Beach Drive area, erosion has taken place over the years. In 1938, there was a major hurricane here in Milford, and prior to that hurricane, Point Beach was a sandy beach. With the 1938 hurricane, all of the sand in the Point Beach area from Melba Street across, coming down to Virginia Street and Point Beach Drive, all of that sandy beach was wiped out, and if you're familiar with the areas, I'm sure you are, that is now a rocky shorefront. Along this stretch of Point Beach Drive, a seawall was put in approximately the 1960s, so that that has stopped further erosion. But the bottom line here is, in terms of measuring the distance on a current survey from Point Beach Drive to the mean high tide line, the survey shows on one side of the property it's roughly 100 feet, on the other side of the property it's some 111 feet. And we submit to you clearly this has created a legal hardship because of the fact that this is germane to the land itself. It's something that has happened to the land. It is not an economic hardship. It's not like we're coming before you for a variance to request a subdivision of a piece of property that is only 12,000 square feet and asking for two 6,000 square foot lots in an R75 zone. We're saying to you that based upon deed transfers and the maps that are on file in City Hall, this property was in fact subdivided in 1927 and had a depth to it of 140 feet. I had mentioned to you also, and it's actually the third item in the handout that I've given to you, on file in the zoning office is a survey that Lawrence Williams, who was a Milford surveyor back in the 70s and 80s, a survey that Mr. Williams had done for the property owner, Louis Darros, for the adjoining property next door at 191 Point Beach Drive. And it's interesting to note, as you can see on that survey, the common boundary line, which is basically the westerly boundary line of this lot, is the easterly boundary line of the subject property. And on this survey that was done in 1974, that distance was calculated to be 138 feet. So we can see, even since 1974, there's been a change in the high tide line in terms of determining the depth of the lot, and we submit to you that that is a hardship, that we are therefore asking for a variance of the square footage requirement in the R75 zone to allow the subdivision of this property to one lot with approximately 6,100 square feet and the other lot with some 6,500 square feet. The last point that I wanted to make, and I attached, again, the last item to my handout, Charlene Adams, who actually is in attendance here at the meeting tonight, Ms. Adams owns 3 other lots that were certified by the zoning office in 2006 and 2007. These are the properties located at 184 Point Beach Drive, which is directly across the street from this site, and as well around the corner on Westmore Road, 2 lots, 16 and 20 Westmore Road. And I've attached for your reference the certificate of zoning compliance that was issued for each of those lots by the zoning office. They were considered and certified to be legal, non-conforming lots. They're 4,000 square feet. They're 40 feet by 100 feet in the R75 zone. And I'm submitting this to you to show that in close proximity to this property, there are 3 other approved 4,000 square foot lots. These 2 proposed lots will be some 50% larger than the 2 lots that have been certified and owned by Ms. Adams. So this is all background information to you. I'm going to turn things over to Ron Wassmer, and he's going to have a handout for you and to talk about how it's calculated in terms of the depth and the determination of the high tide mark. And then if there's follow-up questions, either he or I will be available to address those.
I have a question first. The house on the property that's there right now?
Yes.
When was that house built?
It was built in 1957.
57, because you mentioned a lot of history before that, so I was wondering how this particular house came into existence. When was it again? Would you say what year?
1957, Joe.
1957.
So this property is the combination of 3 40 by 140-foot lots, and the individual who built the house at that time either bought a couple of properties and knocked them down, or just bought the 3 lots. I don't have that information, but they were merged together through the construction of the house. But with the size of the lot, my client's intention is to tear the existing house down and subdivide it and build 2 new shorefront properties on the site.
Okay, so you also mentioned that previously it was subdivided. So was that before 1957? So someone had just come along and put that house in the middle of those lots and merged all that property?
Right. The original subdivision was the Merwin Estate map from 1927, and that predated our zoning regulations. So what we're submitting to you is that these, unlike the lots that Ms. Adams owns that are legal non-conforming lots, what we're seeking is a variance to vary the lot area requirement from 7,500 to 6,100 and 6,500 to create 2 conforming lots, and with the variance, and then take it to the Planning and Zoning Board. This would require a re-subdivision application to the Planning and Zoning Board.
I have one more question to Mr. Suck. We mentioned the water line and how that's taken away from the properties, but aren't we in fact mostly looking at the width of the lot here when we're subdividing this?
Everything else would be conforming. Actually, the lot depth would be conforming. It would be just the resulting square footage.
Right. But it's the matter of being subdividing. We have a conforming property right now, and you're asking for 2 non-conforming lots.
No. I'm asking for a variance of the square footage requirement to, in fact, create 2 conforming lots with a variance.
Okay, so you're asking us to give you a variance for 2 lots here right now that don't even exist?
No. What I'm asking for is a variance for this, and that's how I worded the application. If you see the application, I worded it because this board does not have the power, as we all know, to grant subdivision requests. And there was a history predating recent years where this board would do that. They would grant variances to allow the subdivision of lots that didn't meet the zoning requirements, and arguments could be made that it conformed with the area. What I'm saying here is when the combination of these 3 lots was made to create one piece of property, 16,800 square feet, it was then clearly eligible to be re-subdivided into 2 7,500 square foot lots. But with the survey done and showing that the high tide line has changed, it creates, for lack of a better word, a technicality. By survey standards, which Ron will talk about, they have to determine a high tide line, and that reduces actually the square footage of the surveyed property. But all of the prior deeds transferred 4 lots that were 40 by 140 feet in depth. That makes sense.
Mr. Harris, can I ask you a question? If we were to approve the variance on this, and this would go to the Planning and Zoning Board, would they be able to make a fair decision on that because of the variance we give them?
If the board grants these variances, then the planning, in my opinion, the Planning and Zoning Board would have no option but to approve it, because you would be essentially creating in fact, creating these 2 lots by variance. So if a variance is granted, then the lots would conform to zoning, then the Planning and Zoning Board could grant it, because they can only create conforming lots. The problem as I see it is, in my opinion, the board doesn't have the authority to grant a variance for proposed lots. Your regulations say you can entertain a variance request for a lot. Lots don't exist until they've been created by the Planning and Zoning Board, or prior to that by filing a subdivision map on the land records. So in my opinion, Parcel 1 and Parcel 2 proposed lots don't exist because they have not been created yet. They don't have an address, they don't have a map block and parcel number.
And I totally concur with that, and that's why the application was worded and presented the way it was, because it was made clear in the application that the next step would be to go to the Planning and Zoning Board for an application for a subdivision. Okay, I have one further thing before, Bill, if I could just throw this in. If you recall the rear lot on New Haven Avenue for Richard Lutz and Catherine Lutz, it was about 1.5 years ago. There was a problem with it having the square that the subdivision regulations require, and there was also a setback, I believe, issue, and we brought an application to the board, and this board granted those variances. Then we took that to the Planning and Zoning Board, and with the variances that this board granted, the Planning and Zoning Board granted the subdivision of the property to create a rear lot.
Okay, 2 questions. You said it lost, by your calculations, in 44 years, you lost 38 feet of depth. What's going to happen in 44 more years?
Well, there's a seawall now.
Oh, there's a seawall now.
There's a seawall now.
And my next question is, we always talk about once those 2 lots were built one house, the lots are merged, so now...
Well, that's when you're talking about under 642 having non-conforming lots certified. That doesn't come into play here because the 3 lots combined are still eligible, if you knock the house down, to have 2 conforming lots created. Remember I told you the original deeds and the original maps, and you can see the map from 1973 showing the common boundary line, all indicated that the lots were 40 feet of frontage on Point Beach Drive and 140 feet of depth. If you do the math, it comes to 16,800 square feet, clearly more than the 15,000 that you need to subdivide the property into 2 conforming lots.
Okay, so let me run something else by you. So if you got 2 lots that were merged...
3, actually 3.
No, I'm just running a scenario.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Say you have 2 lots that were merged.
Right.
And they put an addition on and they merged the 2, so the 2 lots became merged.
Correct.
Now they tear that house down, they can go back to 2 lots?
No. Stephen would consider that...
So then what's the difference here?
If the 2 lots were non-conforming, like say you're in an R10 zone, and you have 2 40 by 100 lots that you built on, you merged them, right? And now you want to buy it and you want to tear the house down and build 2 new houses, you can't do it because you only have 4,000 square feet in an R5 or an R10 zone. Here, there was 16,800 square feet in an R75 zone, more than the 15,000 square feet that you need to subdivide to 2 lots. Well, I'm saying that's a technicality.
Okay.
All right, who else is speaking in favor on this? You said someone else has a presentation?
We had another part to our presentation, Ron Wasmer.
Good evening. For the record, Ronald Wasmer, licensed land surveyor and a professional engineer with an office at 158 Research Drive, Milford, Connecticut. I have a couple items I'd like to submit to the board. One item I believe Tom submitted, but I also have a copy of the original subdivision. I have one to full scale as well as some smaller ones. And I've highlighted 2 terms on this 1927 map. And the other is several pictures I took this morning. Okay, I'm going to take a few minutes of your time. And
Yeah,
then,
on this one here, this is the main one that you had given us. Maybe you can come here and point out where the property is on this here for us. Excuse me.
This is a 1927. It's a terrible copy that's in the land records. But on the full-size scale, you can make out where it labels the top of the bank and then the abbreviation HWL, which is the high water line. So that's the record from 1927, and that's when these lots were created. I'm here this evening on request of the applicant to provide information to assist you in your decision. In particular, discuss the property boundary along the mean high water line of Long Island Sound, 183 Point Beach Drive. I've been a licensed land surveyor for 27 years with a total of 33 years experience extensively working along the Milford shoreline. I've reviewed the survey of the property submitted with the application as well as the other surveys conducted in the immediate vicinity. I've also visited the site earlier today and took several pictures. First, let's review the original subdivision, which is dated February 25th, 1927. This is the copy from the land records. Unfortunately, the original is in poor condition, so this is the best copy I can provide. Notice the two lines along the southerly boundary. One is labeled HWL for high water line. Today we use the term mean high water, and the other line is labeled top of bank. Mean high water is an elevation above sea level. Sea level is approximately halfway between the low tide and the high tide, and is established by the state of Connecticut. The elevation of mean high water varies from 3.4 feet in Greenwich to 0.9 feet in Stonington. In Milford, the state has established this elevation as 2.9. This is a vertical distance above sea level. Properties bounded in their deeds as, in quote, along Long Island Sound owned to the mean high water and have certain riparian rights. Riparian rights are the rights related to water boundaries. The 1927 subdivision indicates the property is approximately 140 feet deep, measured from the street line towards the high water line. Now I'd like to review the pictures. Picture number one, I'm standing at the southeast corner and looking to the west. You notice the shoreline is comprised of large boulders and retaining walls or seawalls. Notice the retaining wall in the picture that further to the south. There's two retaining walls in picture one. You'll notice one is approximately 24 feet further into the towards the water, and the other one's approximately 50 feet. My opinion, the wall that projects 50 feet further sound was constructed at the mean high water where the line was at the earlier time, perhaps in 1927. I don't know exactly when the wall was constructed. Picture number two is standing a little further to the east and again looking to the west. Notice again the shoreline is boulders and retaining walls. Picture number three is looking to the east. It is further to the east and looking to the northwest. Notice the retaining wall constructed of large concrete blocks. These blocks are approximately 1.5 feet by 2 feet by 6 feet in size. This wall was damaged by the recent strong storms. Picture number four is the same retaining wall looking to the east. Notice again the large concrete blocks in disarray and the various retaining walls in the further distance to the east. Picture number 5 is looking to the south towards a large concrete block well south of the retaining wall and into the water. It would take a large storm to move this block so far from the wall. Picture number 6 is looking easterly towards Morningside. Notice the large boulders, the sanitary manholes projecting 4 feet or so above the ground level, and also the substantial retaining wall built along Morningside Drive. I believe this wall was built in the 1960s or 1970s. At the current time, we see that the height of the land adjacent to the shoreline has dropped by several feet. Now, this is the most important thing that I'm going to explain. The pictures are to try to help you understand the terminology that I'm going to use. And my opinion that the change in the ground level is a result of avulsion, A-V-U-L-S-I-O-N. I have a couple reference texts. One is a definition of surveying and associated terms prepared by a joint committee of the American Congress of Surveying and Mapping and the American Society of Civil Engineers. That's this reference text here. This reference defines avulsion, and this is the very most important part of this, is the rapid erosion of shorelands from waves during a storm. In contrast, erosion is considered gradual or imperceptible destruction. The key difference is rapid versus gradual. This reference defines avulsion as the rapid erosion of shorelines from waves during a storm I misspoke. I have another reference text. It's entitled Evidence and Procedures for Boundary Location. It's prepared by Curtis Brown, Walter Roblard, and Donald Wilson. They are experts in determining surveying boundaries. They've written several textbooks, reference books. This reference defines avulsion as the rapid erosion of shorelines from waves during a storm. We're all aware of the many storms that have hit the Milford coast since 1927. My personal recollection is Hurricane Bell, 1976, Gloria, 1985, Bob, 1991, the quote-unquote perfect storm of 1991, and most recently, Irene and Sandy. In the second reference text, by Wilson, what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that the existing retaining walls indicate the mean high water was once further seaward than it is now, as shown in picture 1. 2, that the shoreline is a rocky shoreline and in places protected by retaining walls, and that the shoreline has receded rapidly as a result of strong storms. Now, rapidly from 1927 to now doesn't seem rapid, but what happens is these changes in the shoreline occur over a short period of time during the storms. Most of us have been witness to the changes in the shoreline as a result of these storms. Now, in this reference text, the following statement is made. Revulsion or avulsion, the use are words simultaneously, is a sudden and imperceptible removal of the sudden and perceptible removal of considerable quantity of land. And now, the most important part, by common law, lands detached by revulsion belong to the land from which it once was detached. In my opinion, the land could have been restored to its original position after the storm. At this time, the landowner would be subject to the jurisdiction of the Connecticut DEP. We all know this is a very onerous requirement in which applicants are actually discouraged. I've been involved in several applications where people lose their land and wish to reconstruct. And even though they're within their right, the Connecticut DEP makes this very difficult. And in the end result is that the people lose the land. Last, I'm just going to ask you to take a look at picture number 7. You can see clearly where the water line makes an abrupt 90-degree turn landward just west of the extensive seawall constructed along Morningside Drive. Again, you can see this is a rocky shorefront, and the landowners are losing land from the large storms that impact this area as a result of the rapid loss of land. That's my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, thank you. In looking through these pictures, the second picture, correct, that's the one that really pertains to the property that we're talking about. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So it looks like that seawall, I don't know when that seawall might have been built. It doesn't look like anything was taken away from there. You've shown us a lot of other pictures of other properties and what's happening, but specifically,
what I'm trying to demonstrate.
Specifically, this is the one in question right now.
So the mean high water line is indicated on this survey, and as well as the pictures, is waterward of the retaining wall, okay? You can see the retaining walls in the distance were built further out. This retaining wall was built at a later date, and from the time that this wall has been built, the landowner continues to lose property as a result of the large storms. The mean high water line is waterward of that.
All right, so if we look at the furthest structure in this picture number 2, and it shows the walls out further, so we're talking about what's happened since 1927 to the present, correct?
Yes,
It's
from
obvious
1927.
it's obvious we are losing land.
Yes,
through the years.
I agree with that.
But, go ahead, Mr. Soto, you had a question.
It's the blue house with the picket fence in picture 2, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for this gentleman? No other questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Lynch, you want to speak again, or is there anyone else speaking in favor?
I just want to wrap up our presentation. I don't know if
Oh, okay, go ahead. Sure.
So I just wanted to tie it all together. And again, just to stress, because Bill had asked the question about the merger and whatnot, these are 3 40 by 140-foot lots. So even with the proposed division, if we take this to the Planning and Zoning Board and a subdivision is approved, they would create 2 conforming lots. It meets all the other standards in terms of lot width, depth, setbacks can be met, and again, stressing the fact that a 6,000 square foot lot along this area, if you reference the grid at the top right-hand corner of the survey that we submitted to you, shows all of the residences in the area from the assessor's maps. And you can see that even with this property subdivided into these 2 lots proposed on an application to the Planning and Zoning Board, they would be either in conformity or exceed the other 40-foot by 100-foot lots that are prevalent in the area. Again, I stress to you that we handle matters all the time before you where we're asking for variances, and it's more a matter of convenience, or it's a matter of a structure that'll improve the neighborhood. This is clearly a legal hardship. It's exactly what zoning textbooks reference when we're talking about, under our state statutes, people bringing applications before you to seek a variance. It's germane to the land itself. These were lots that were created, and now with the passage of time, there's been portions of them that have moved away, and as Ron said in his concluding comment to you, it's still the property of the landowner, it's just that it's separated from the lot. And it's sort of a weird concept to comprehend, but I say to you that it does create a legal hardship, and necessitates a request for a variance such as this that we've presented to you.
Ms. Ferranti, you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question, and I may have missed something, but this assessor's record of the property says that the length of the property is 140 feet, and we've already determined that 140 by 120 split by 2, you've got 2 conforming lots, right? So where is somebody stating something contrary to that? Where are we getting this new length?
The survey. When the surveyor measured, based on what Ron testified to you, how they determined the high tide line, the measurement of the lot from Point Beach Drive back to the mean high tide line, you can see it on the survey, Sarah. It's 100 feet on one side, it's 111
Yeah, no, I
on
see that. So, okay. So if the, okay, so the records still show that it's 140, but the new survey was done specifically for this
Surveyors
subdivision?
have to, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Surveyors have to follow standards, and even though a deed and a map, a subdivision map is on record in town hall, they have to determine the mean high tide line, and based on Paul Stowell's determination, the mean high tide is shown on here, and it's not 140 feet back, it's 111 and 101 feet. And when you then calculate the square footage,
I got it.
you come up with 2 lots that would be 6,100 and 6,500 instead of 2 8,400 square foot lots. And I'm saying to you, and I'm repeating myself, but in my view, that's a technicality. The people bought over the years a lot that was 120 by 140 feet. And the
Until
records
this
show that.
survey, the title has always stated 140 feet.
This is the second survey on record. Remember, in your handout, there's a survey from 1973 or 74, and that's not that long ago. I honestly don't know how 30 feet got lost in 30 years. Or 40 years. That just seems a little incredulous, but it's on file, and that's in the zoning office.
Okay.
All right.
Is there anyone else here?
Thank you. I know it's been a long night, so thanks.
Anyone else here speaking in favor? Is there anyone here opposed? Anyone opposed to this application? Go ahead. Well, come up and identify yourself, sir.
Sure. Dave Shepard, 180 Point Beach Drive. I live across the street from the Sirachis. I'm not sure what's going to happen with this development, where right now I have a nice view of the water between the 2 houses. If they do the subdivision, am I going to have a 2 or 3 story skyscraper and a 5-foot window? And so I'm not really opposing. I just like to know what they're planning once they get this variance and they put this house up. I'm dead in the water, and I'd like to know before they get the approval what they're planning on building.
Well, that's something that we don't even know.
Right.
You know, so. Go ahead.
I'd be happy to address that, but we anticipated that would come up if any of the neighbors came down tonight. Greg and Angela are both here. They've been home builders here in Milford for 30 years. They know the building requirements. As we all know, a house can be built to 35 feet at average, above grade. Their intention here is to build 2 two-story houses with a height of some 25 feet, not the 35 that the zoning and building code allows.
Would there be any yard setbacks or variance requests?
No, they would meet all the setbacks.
So how wide will each house be? So you can tell the neighbor that.
Each lot, oh, Greg?
My name's Greg Field, 173 Kings Highway, Milford. The house width would be approximately 45 feet by 35-foot depth. And the height of the house is only going to be 2 stories, approximately 25 feet high, with a full basement because we're in an X zone, so we can put a basement there. So we don't need to put a skyscraper like half of the ones down there because most of them are in a low-lying area, so we're in a high area here, so we don't need to go 35 feet tall.
So what's the setback from the house on the right-hand side, because that's where it would affect me, right here, to the boundary line? Because right now I have, say, 40 feet.
10 feet here, and then the house would start, you know,
Right.
see this line here, so it's 40.
There'll be 15 feet between the two houses, right?
Yes.
10 and 5.
So it's 15 between.
And right now I have like 40 feet from the fence line to Srirachi's house.
So do you have an estimate on the square footage? You have an estimate on the square footage of the house?
Excuse me?
We need an estimate on the square footage.
Oh,
We have an idea what the square footage.
2,400 to 2,600, 2,400 square feet. Yeah. We're not looking at no 5,000 square foot houses, no. Smaller houses that we could, you know.
Okay, so you don't know if you're for this or you're against it, so.
Right now, what they're telling me is I have, say, from the boundary line of the Srirachi's fence line to the house is about 40 feet, I'm guessing, 30 feet. And so now they're gonna shrink it down. You know, I like the view. That's why I bought down where I bought. I bought it 4 years ago from the Srirachi's daughter. So I'm a little concerned about that. And do I have a right to be concerned?
Well, we can't consider your view, but you have your own opinion on
Right.
whether you're for it or against it, so that's what you could state.
Right.
I just want to address that once for him because we're going to put this house close to the street because the X line is only 30 feet in on the lot, so we're not going to build past the X line here. If you look at this, this is the X line.
So I guess I'd say, unless they could do something, I don't want to lose my view. Is that wrong? Then I'd say I'm opposed.
You're going to have better views. You'll have views of looking through, plus
I have an issue with it.
Yeah, I do. I just want to go back to, sorry, what you said before about the house being built close to the street. Again, I want to confirm, are you going to be asking for a front yard setback variance? I see the X line here.
No, we're not going to be going for any variance at all.
Okay.
On anything, no. Absolutely not.
Okay, no other questions? This hearing's closed. So it's a subdivision. So that's what you have to think about. It's like, if we approve the variance, it's pretty much approved by planning and zoning. So if you think it shouldn't be approved, then you know your options. You either approve it or deny it. Any comments? Do we have any comments so far? Any discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Hirsch.
Yeah, my only thing is if there was no avulsion, they wouldn't even need a variance because they wouldn't have lost any of their land. So the reason why they're here is because of essentially natural conditions.
Well, we're still looking at the width of the lot. It's, what's happening in, to the rear of the lot is really not what's in question here right now. Yeah, they did a good presentation on it and telling us why, but it's the width of the lot that's in question and the subdivision of that property.
The width of the lot is, the width of the lot would be conforming. You'd be getting two 60-foot wide parcels, and that's the minimum. That's the minimum.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the width would be
I think what Joe's saying is if the lot was
conforming.
wider, you'd have the square footage. Right, Joe? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying what's in question in this whole thing is the width of the lot as far as forming two subdivisions. Okay?
Right, but if
I know you're losing property from the backside. That's been happening through the years anyway.
If you made it up in the width, you'd be conforming.
The width is, if you were to split this lot in two, the width would, you would have two conforming lots width-wise.
Go ahead, Mr. Harris. Go ahead, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Chairman, there seems...
Yes, I realize...
No, not square foot,
I realize
because
that.
of the water line.
I realize if you're losing some from the rear,
Could I clarify
that you're losing
something?
your square foot.
Could I clarify something for the board? I keep hearing talk about the width. I think maybe you mean the depth of the lot. The applicant's presentation spoke about the depth of the lot, not the width.
Yes, with the depth
But
of the lot.
if it was wider, you'd have your 7,500 that you need. That's what we're trying to say, because it's not as deep as it should be. You're losing it on depth, but if it was wider, I think that's what Joe meant. If they were like 280-foot wide lots, you might have your 7,500, and we wouldn't even be here.
We would be here for subdivision, because you're taking a conforming lot and you're splitting it into two separate lots.
No, not if they had the square footage.
You still separate it. Okay. So, what do you think? Make a motion. You need more time? You want to leave this one up?
No, I'll make
table this.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Based on the reason based on the reduction of the size of the lot due to natural occurrences.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second on the motion. Ms. Valicant?
I'm against the motion.
Ms. Ferranti?
With the motion.
Mr. Soda?
With the motion.
Mr. Hirsch?
With the motion.
I'm against the motion. Motion denied.
Item number 7, 17 Gardner Avenue, MBP 27-455-9, R5, Paul Freya, owner, vary section 3.1.4.1, rear yard setback to 10.48 feet, where 20 feet required to construct a single-family dwelling.
Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. Paul Freya, the owner of 17 Gardner Avenue. Mr. Chairman, can I approach and give a couple of handouts,
Can you lift the microphone again? Go ahead.
some handouts to the board?
Yep. Okay, that's okay. We were...
So as you may recall, I was here last month and asked for 3 variances at the time. Those are highlighted on the second page of that handout that I gave you. First was for the same rear yard variance that the board had approved in 2015, which was a variance to 10.48 feet where 20 was required. In addition, I had asked for 2 deck projections to 14 feet where 16 was required. Following last month's decision, which was to deny without prejudice, I have modified my request and am now only seeking the rear yard setback variance, which the board had granted in 2015, and that's highlighted on page 1. So the hardship is the same as noted in 2015 variance, which was the shallowness of the lot. The variance was granted at the time because of the destruction of the original home, which was as a result of Storm Sandy. In addition, I have spoken to the 2 neighbors who spoke in opposition at last month's meeting, and in an effort to form a compromise with them, I've agreed to eliminate the attic dormer in an effort to make the house a little less imposing on them. This will prohibit the additional approximately 500 square feet of living area in the 3rd floor, and leaving the home about 1,700 square feet on the 2 main floors. The prior 2015 approval was for a dwelling that was in an area of lower elevation, and that's on page 3, which was located closer to the tidal wetlands and needed state approval. The new location, as indicated on page 1, moves the home to the higher elevation area of the lot, creating a larger side yard and leaving the area closest to the tidal wetlands as undeveloped, and keeping it away from the state coastal jurisdiction line as well. Another benefit to the new location that it helps mitigate the risk of flood to the house. The footprint of the home, as we discussed last month, is very similar to what was proposed in 2015, so the runoff issues have been addressed with either the use of barrels or a rain garden. So there's really no large change or no large effect from having a 1-story home to having a 2-story home. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, so you were here last month, and you had other variances, and you were denied without prejudice, so this had been approved before.
The rear yard setback had
So
been
what you're
approved.
actually doing right now is you're just, how many feet over are you moving the house?
So it's 20-foot setback in the back. I'm asking for 10.5 feet.
So, but you always had that?
Yeah,
That's already
yes.
been approved?
We had it with the other 1-story house.
So the only addition is how it's being shifted?
It's being shifted, that's,
Okay.
that is, one of the
Do you
reasons to
understand
come
that,
back.
everyone? These guys are unhappy in the back.
I think that's it.
This hearing's closed. Okay. A little history on this. Well, some of you were here last month. You know that this had already been approved. He brought some other variances along, and I guess he's taken them out. It's pretty much what has already been approved. I don't know. Was it a year or so ago, sir, that it was approved?
In 2015.
Okay. So it's as simple as that. So, any questions? No? Okay. We need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Approval based on the shallowness of the lot.
Okay, thank you. A motion to approve. We have a second on the motion. Ms. Valakut?
I'm with the motion.
Ms. Ferranti?
With the motion.
Mr. Hirsch?
With the motion.
Mr. Soder?
With the motion.
I'm with the motion. It's approved.
Thank you very much.
Item number 8, 247 Broadway, MBP 12/179/3, R5, J. Anderson, agent for Yu Len Feng, owner. Vary section 3.1.4.1, side yard setback to 4.9 feet where 5 feet required. Rear yard setback to 4.6 feet where 20 feet required. Front yard setback to 5.3 feet where 10 feet required. Rear yard setback of 4.1 feet where 20 feet required to construct a mudroom connecting garage to house.
Good evening, Board. My name is John Anderson. I reside at 247 Broadway.
Why don't you pick that microphone up so you're more comfortable? That's good.
Yeah, John Anderson, 247 Broadway. I have some letters I'd like to present. We're requesting a variance for, to connect the garage to the home. The hardship is the setbacks, as you see. I haven't done this before, so if you would like to walk me through whatever you want me to talk about.
Well, okay, we'll help you here. All your variances were stated, and they already exist, but they have to be stated because you're connecting two buildings together.
So I would read that section.
Which is adding to more of the nonconformity. So we pretty much have a picture of what you would like. Am I correct, board members? Okay. So that's really much, what it's about. So we can ask also if there's anyone else here in favor that wants to speak. Anyone else in favor? Do we have any questions for this gentleman? Mr. Hirsch, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. I assume this is for safety purposes?
Correct, yes.
Okay, is there anyone here opposed? If you're opposed, come forward and state your reasons.
Marilyn McManus, Fairwood. This good? Marilyn McManus, 23 Fairwood Ave. That's the corner of Broadway and Fairwood. And I guess I need to look at some pictures or something because it makes no sense to me what the thing I got in the mail.
We need you, we don't have your name. She didn't get your name.
Marilyn McManus, McManus, 23 Fairwood Avenue.
This is between the garage and the house. It's a small little.
Oh, yeah, I
4 foot
know.
by 6 foot to connect the house together.
So it's like, where's the back of the yard over here? I don't understand this 20-foot thing and 20-foot setback and not into 4.
Those are already existing. Did you show the picture like this, sir?
I'm looking at this.
You can come forward. Why don't you come forward here, and we'll explain it to you. Okay? This is what he's proposing to do. He wants to put a little connection between the garage and the house.
Right.
All the setbacks is what's stated because of this 4.6 up here.
Right.
This was all,
He's not touching the house.
this was all part of when this was approved.
Right. So
And this has
right
to be,
here, from the back of the garage to the next yard?
yeah.
How much is there? 4 feet?
That's
Exactly
beside,
what's there now.
that's beside the
Right,
point.
right.
This
No,
is,
I
this
know,
is just
but I'm
there.
just trying to figure,
It's 4.9 feet.
The house takes up the whole lot already.
Right. So this is in the middle. It's not taking up any more of the lot.
Was that garage ever approved?
This whole thing was approved.
The garage?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I never got notice about it. I
Well,
heard it was
well,
the
how long ago was the house built?
That was Andy's Market a million years ago. I've been here since
Well,
1980.
this had been approved. I don't even
Yeah, as a single-car garage, you can put.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, prior applications are non-germane.
I'm sorry?
Prior applications are non-germane.
Right, right. What happened, this has been approved, This is what we're looking at right now.
all right.
Just this little thing here.
I guess I just want to understand, because
Sure.
I've been here for a long time.
Absolutely.
No one ever said anything about the garage. If the whole lot is taken up by.
Right, so it's there now, we can't take it away.
Now they want to close this in too?
They want, because they want to go from their garage, I would imagine,
And build up?
into their house. No, they're not building
Well,
up.
you know what, I mean, it's just a tight neighborhood.
Yeah.
Someone else said.
Okay, so-
The houses take up the whole lot.
Yep.
They're going
Well,
sky high.
they're not adding on to the living space. This is just a
It's just a
go-between.
connector from the
I know
house.
what that is.
Okay.
I get what it
Yeah,
is.
so,
See, when you build a separate garage,
I've been there a long time, and I didn't understand
Yep.
how the garage ever
Okay.
got put there,
Well-
because it just showed up.
well, it's there now, so it's
I
like.
know it's there
And it
now.
was approved,
And
so,
it was approved, you sure?
well, it wouldn't be there.
Well, not
They built the whole
necessarily.
house at the same time, I would imagine.
No, they just redid the old house. That was stuck there.
They had to be approved. You would have to come down to the planning and zoning office, and they'll show you the records that it was approved, and when it was approved.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So what happens if it wasn't approved? Nothing you can do about it, right?
Do you want to see the file, Joe?
Do you have it here right now? She's got the file, she'll show you right now that was approved.
You know what, I mean,
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
okay, hold on one second. Yes,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
anybody can come into the planning and zoning office, and I will walk you through the file.
Yeah, you don't have
tomorrow.
to do that right now.
But
don't you do
anything,
that?
any prior application of this property, as I was saying before, any prior application for this property is non-germane to this project. But if you want to come into the office tomorrow morning, yeah, you can come into the office tomorrow morning, you can look at the file all you want.
what year are
That's
you
fine.
saying the garage was built? What year do you think the garage?
when was it built? In the 90s?
Okay, so when you bought your house, there wasn't a garage there?
No.
Okay.
Okay,
So I just wanted to, you know, like the whole block, the whole yard
Yeah.
is going to be all house, now they're going to connect it to, I don't know.
okay. Anyone else speaking in opposition?
You need to, please speak into the microphone for the, this is being
We just bought the
recorded.
home, so I don't know about the prior, that's why I
Okay.
was telling her, I don't know about the prior. We bought the home just recently, within the year.
Yeah,
Okay, so you're on record as being opposed.
yeah, I really, I mean, the whole lot is taken up by house now.
Well, the house is there right now. There's
I know, so you're gonna
nothing you
connect
can do
it
about
and-
we're not taking anything away. We're approving or denying,
Yeah.
the application that's before us,
Mm-hmm.
which is for a structure between the garage and
Right.
the house. So what's
Right.
there is there, it's been approved. You have an invitation by the Planning and Zoning
Yeah,
Department to come down, and they can go over any of the records
Mm-hmm.
from the years before that you would like to see.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay. You can have the last word, sir, if you'd like.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I mentioned before, we just bought the home, so I couldn't answer those questions. Don't have anything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for this gentleman? None? Okay. Okay, this hearing's closed. So, what are your thoughts on this?
I said I went by the property. It seems like a pretty reasonable request to me.
It's also a request that would enhance the safety of the people living in the house, which I think, do you have children, sir?
Yes, I do.
All right, there you go. So they have children there, so it's something for the safety of neighborhood children.
Okay, we need a motion.
I make a motion to approve.
I second.
Mr. Soto?
The hardship is based on the narrowness of the lot.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second on the motion. Ms. Valikett?
I'm with the motion.
Ferranti?
With the motion.
Mr. Hirsch?
With the motion.
Mr. Soto?
With the motion.
I'm with the motion, it's approved.
Thank you.
New business, any new business this evening? Do we have any old business? No old business? Okay, how about a staff update? We're all set? Acceptance of the minutes? Let's finish up here. Bill, let's finish up here. Acceptance of the minutes from May. Did everyone read the minutes? Everything's okay? Okay, motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Applications for next month? Got a couple? We have a hearing that we left open. That's it, unless there's anything else coming along.
We expect one Seaview to be withdrawn, and I know of one application that's in the works.
Okay, thank you. Motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned.